Portillo. Join me on GB News on a Sunday morning for topical discussion, debate, arts and culture, and sometimes even ethical dilemmas.
I don't always agree with you, Michael.
Michael Portillo, Sundays on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Labour double down on their controversial adverts.
Good morning. It's 6 o'clock on Saturday, the 8th of April. This is Breakfast on GB News with Stephen and Dawn. And here are your top stories this morning.
The Labour Party has posted another attack ad criticising the Prime Minister. It follows on from yesterday's row, which saw a wave of criticism from across the political spectrum.
Meanwhile, tributes have been flooding in for S Club 7 star Paul Catmull, who has died unexpectedly at the age of 46. The band's manager, Simon Fuller, called him a beacon of light. We'll have the latest reactions on that.
Now, where's the best place to visit for a mini break, staycation, or even just a day trip in Britain? New research has revealed a popular seaside town has won the crown for Best Easter Destination. Stay with us to find out where it is.
And we all love our pets, and everyone is a hero to us. We'll be meeting one dog who has been nominated for a very special doggy award. You won't want to miss Mia and her owner coming up later in the show.
And of course, we'd love to hear from you this morning. Anything you want to talk about, just drop us an email, gbviews@gbnews.uk. Well, Labour has doubled down on its attacks on the government with the release of another controversial poster on Twitter.
Yesterday, they claimed on Twitter the Prime Minister did not think that child abusers should be sent to jail.
Well, following the publication of that tweet, we asked the Shadow Culture Secretary Lucy Powell if Keir Starmer should apologise.
No, I don't think he should apologise. These are election graphics. These are political graphics, which, as I say, are not something that I designed or wrote. Well, look, they're not my words. They're not words I've chosen. But what I am saying to you, as somebody who's been asked to talk about the issues that we are highlighting today, regards to these huge figures that we are unveiling, is that these serious offenders, some of them are not getting the custodial sentences that they should be.
Well, undeterred, they've come out with another one. It says, do you think an adult convicted of possessing a gun with intent to harm should go to prison? Rishi Sunak doesn't.
We're doubling down on what? Oh, well, let's see what freelance journalist and Conservative commentator Reem Ibrahim thinks of this one.
Hello, thank you for having me on. Good morning.
Morning.
I mean, it really is absurd, and it's clearly a very intentional smear campaign against the Prime Minister. I mean, we obviously know that the government have failed on crime and law and order. We know that that's the case. But clearly this is a sort of very Trump-esque political smear campaign where the truth doesn't necessarily really matter. But what does matter is the fact that they're getting headlines and people are talking about it.
Well, yeah, they've got a valid point, though, haven't they? I mean, they list the figures underneath, whereas you say, the government is failing on some aspects of crime, at least. And Rishi Sunak's the head of the government.
He is, but he's not responsible for the convictions, is he? Sort of the magistrates and the judges that are responsible personally for that. And look, the government should most certainly take responsibility for a lot of these failings. I mean, the government have been failing on all fronts, in my opinion, not just on law and order, but also on the economy and on social issues. However, what's clear about this situation is that the Labour Party are using this as a smear campaign in order for them to criticise Sunak personally. And again, I mean, it takes away from the facts. The fact of the matter is the government have failed. Trying to claim that Sunak personally, for some reason, does not want to see these people that have committed horrible crimes in prisons. I mean, that's just not true. And I think it's actually quite damaging, damaging political smear campaign.
You know what was more shocking? I mean, yesterday's post was bad enough, but then they doubled down on it with the gun crime one. Do you think an adult convicted of possessing a gun with intent to harm should go to prison? Rishi Sunak doesn't. Well, that's a lie as well, because actually conviction of a gun intent to harm is 5 years in prison. And the government changed that in 2021. So it's not even accurate.
No, it's not accurate. It's not true. But again, this is about this political smear campaign where they are bending the truth. I mean, the point of the post is clearly to get people upset and to get people like us talking about it. But what this is doing is it's sort of bending the truth in order for them to fit their own narrative. I mean, the Labour Party themselves haven't been particularly strong on law and order themselves either. I mean, Keir Starmer hasn't necessarily put forward these policy plans except for sort of the past few months. I mean, before then, I honestly couldn't tell you a single policy that Starmer was putting forward. So I think what's interesting about this is it's sort of using this very damaging, quite toxic political smear campaign strategy in order for them to rack up the votes. I mean, it comes across as quite desperate.
Yeah, what if it's working, though? I mean, that's the thing. There is clearly an amount of criticism which can be levelled of a dog whistle campaign like this. Some people call it gutter politics. Yeah. Well, but it's still politics and it still might work. I don't think that we should be importing the sort of American toxic debate that we see over in the US. I don't think we should be importing that to the UK. We're supposed to be a little bit better than that. I think we're supposed to be sort of looking at the facts and having these political campaigns be based on facts. This is not based on facts. This is untrue. And I think it actually shows how desperate the Labour Party really are.
Do you think it will make people more sympathetic to Rishi Sunak?
I don't think it will make people more sympathetic to Sunak, but I think it makes Starmer look terribly bad, or at least the Labour Party in their campaign strategy is very bad. I mean, clearly we know that Sunak has been failing, or the government themselves have been failing as an entirety. I mean, Sunak's been Prime Minister for less than a year, so I think it's very difficult to pin everything on him. He wasn't even Prime Minister, he wasn't even an MP during the time that these stats were starting in 2010, so it's unfair, obviously, to put this all on Sunak. Of course, the government has to take responsibility for their failings on law and order and their failings across the board, but using fake lies, sort of using this toxic political smear campaign, I think is unhelpful and takes away from the truth of the matter. What are we to make of, I mean, of all people, John McDonnell coming out and saying this is beneath the Labour Party? I mean, I thought that was quite interesting from someone like him. Absolutely. I think it's hearing it from John McDonnell, who himself sort of was partial to a toxic smear campaign. I think it's fascinating to see these people in the Labour Party coming out against it. There have been other sort of backbench Labour MPs that have come out against it as well. What I found interesting is what we saw earlier with Lucy Powell's comment on this issue. Is sort of she didn't necessarily go against it in its entirety. She said, I didn't make the graphic, but I believe in the message. And I think, again, it is part of this sort of toxic debate that we're seeing at the moment.
Well, even Diane Abbott's come out against it as well, hasn't
she? And again,
So...
I mean, Diane Abbott has been partial to a political smear campaign herself. And again, I just think it's about the fact that it's based in lies, isn't it? And it's unhelpful and takes away from the very essence of the debate and the very essence of the criticism, which is the government have failed.
OK, Reem, we're going to catch up with you a little bit later, but for now, thank you. Love to know what you think about that.
Ooh.
I mean, look, it's got us talking. Maybe that's the point of it.
But, Stephen, we're not talking about the right issues. We're not talking about the crime and what we can do about the crime issues and the fact that in London, for example, rape is almost more or less legal because it's not investigated.
No, well, you can't say it's more or less legal.
Well, I know, but it is because it's not investigated enough. But we're actually talking about the politics, the smear campaign, not actually what anyone is doing to solve the problems that are affecting all of us.
Yeah, but maybe we wouldn't listen. If they just talked about the stats, maybe we wouldn't listen. I don't know. Love to know what you think. GBviews at gbnews.uk. It's 9 minutes past 6. Let's bring you up to date with what else is going on today.
Right, two British Israeli sisters in their 20s have been killed in a gun attack in the West Bank. Their mum is also in critical condition after their car was targeted near an Israeli settlement. British citizens are also reportedly amongst 6 people injured after a car drove into a group of people in Tel Aviv, leaving 1 person dead.
A 26-year-old man has been charged with the murder of a Romanian woman in Northern Ireland. Gila Ibrahim, who was 26, was found at home in Limerick on Tuesday. The suspect due to appear at Belfast Magistrates Court later on today.
And more than 850 community and charity representatives from across the country have been invited to the King's Coronation on May the 6th. 450 recipients of the British Empire Medal have been asked to attend the service at Westminster Abbey, whilst 400 young people will watch from the adjacent St Margaret's Church.
And we've got to mention this. It was such a shocker yesterday. Tributes pouring in for S Club's Paul Cattermole, who's died at the age of 46. The band's manager said Paul was a beacon of light for a generation of music fans and he will be greatly missed. Vernon Kay said it was so very sad. Paul was found at his home in Dorset on Thursday afternoon. The cause of death is unknown, but police saying no suspicious circumstances. In a statement issued by the family and the group, it said there are no words to describe their deep sadness. And we're talking more about that with Steph a little bit later on. It's just, I'm so sad. I feel really sorry about that because he's had basically a pretty tough life. I was absolutely shocked. 46 is just so young. There's been a few celebrity deaths that really affected me this year, and it's like I don't know why I feel so sad. I mean, it wasn't my band, it wasn't my era, it wasn't my generation. But a 46-year-old young man, as you say, Stephen, he had such a sad life as well. Yeah, he did. He did. So, but isn't it interesting? Paul O'Grady at 67, which is, you know, again, just young. Yeah. And especially nowadays. You know, Paul at 46, which is nothing. You know, the one that really got me, and I think it was the end of last year now, was it? Terry Hall from The Specials. Because it was my generation, my music, and I felt like I'd actually lost a friend. Which was weird. And, you know, people go on about celebrity deaths, and it's like, we didn't know them, how can you be that upset? And it's like, but there are some that really do affect you, and you read some of the tributes to Paul overnight, and people really are upset. Yeah. Well, I can understand it. Yeah. I can. Anyway, let's cheer things up a little bit. What's your favourite seaside town? Have you got a favourite seaside town? When we were kids, we used to go... You're looking at me strangely like that. It was a long time ago. When we were kids, we used to go to Jaywick in Essex. Jaywick? Jaywick in Essex. It's actually, I think, one of the poorest places in the country at the moment. It's near... Well, you're northern, aren't you? Yes. Yeah. It's on the Essex coast. It's near, like, Southend, Clacton, along there. Yeah. So that was our highlight, this trip to Jaywick in Essex. It's still very nice. Yeah. Oh, there you go. Sort of interesting sort of way. It was always Morecambe and Blackpool for us. You know, they were our two. Yeah, well, Jaywick, Clacton, similar to Blackpool, Southend. It's similar, but, you know, you're northern, I've done the southern bit. Yeah. So between us, we've got it covered. Yeah. But none of them are the nation's favourite. No, there's this new survey, I don't know who it's by now, but pointing out which is the sort of favourite to book an Airbnb or something. Anyway, but you may be a little bit surprised. We'll tell you what it is a little bit later on. If you've got any thoughts, any ideas, any guesses, GBviews at gbnews.uk. Now, yesterday marked the 25th anniversary of the signing of the Good Friday Agreement, with much of the country reflecting on the conflict. The 1998 deal ended 30 years of violence in Northern Ireland, known as the Troubles,
which cost the lives of more than 3,500 people.
Well, Arlene Foster, former First Minister of Northern Ireland and one of our colleagues here at GB News, sat down with Bertie Ahern, the Republic's former Taoiseach, who reflected on the key moments in the country's history.
It's no good thinking that we've actually got over these things, and that comes from today's politicians and into the future. I think they have to be talking messages of, you know, of reconciliation and peace and confidence.
I often find
not digging up things, you know.
Yeah, if people don't, you don't have to agree with someone's politics to have a conversation with them.
No.
And I think we've lost the art of that civic discussion and understanding.
I think a bit of education is of how bad things were is a help when you're trying to go forward, because sometimes, you know, and I find this with students, if I can say those, but sometimes it's simplistic solutions.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, as you know, Arlene, I know, these aren't simplistic issues, and that's a reality we have to understand.
Now, you see, that is going to be worth watching.
Oh, God,
in full.
absolutely.
You know, former Taoiseach and former First Minister sat down together having a conversation.
Yeah.
It's like those meetings that do go on that we never get to see.
Yeah, but this has given it the hue because the politics of Northern Ireland can be so scary and so complicated to get your head round. But that's two people who've been through it, have lived it. I mean, you know, Bertie actually shook hands on the Northern Ireland peace agreement. So, I mean, absolutely fascinating.
I think...
And they're sitting having a chat.
Yeah, it's really going to be worth your time tomorrow. You can see that full interview between Arlene and Bertie Ahern tomorrow, 10 o'clock, during the Camilla Tominey Show.
Right, joining us now, though, is political commentator Dr. John Coulter to tell us more about what's going on.
Yeah. Morning, John. I mean, what do you make of, I mean, not only the anniversary, actually, but the fact that we've got a big week ahead with President Biden coming, whilst in the midst of this, amid all the parades, there's this ongoing terror threat.
Well, good morning, Dawn. Good morning, Stephen, and a happy Easter to both of you. As a journalist with 45 years of experience under my belt, I would say the situation that we're at now in the peace process as we celebrate the Silver Jubilee of the Good Friday Agreement is the reality is the Good Friday Agreement needs a major political MOT if the peace process is to survive into the next 25 years. I mentioned MOT there as if we're working on a car. There's two major spark plugs that we're going to need to make it succeed. The first one is that we need to return to the original Good Friday Agreement in terms of designations of unionist, nationalist and other. At the present minute, it's the largest party is entitled to the First Minister's position. So from that point of view, we've got to move it away from largest party to largest designation. The other thing, we desperately need the Stormont executive to be restored, but with the power to amend the Windsor framework. That's still the big sticking point, which is preventing the DUP from restarting power sharing here in Northern Ireland. So basically, the spark plug that needs is to give any new future assembly, which has kick-started, the power to seriously amend the Windsor framework. I'm a wee bit concerned about this visit by President Biden.
John, sorry to interrupt, John. Before we get on to Biden, I'm intrigued by your spark plugs. Because there's, I mean, the first one, you're going from choosing the First Minister from the biggest party to the biggest designation. Would the parties actually want to go along with that? And secondly, even if that did actually allow the restoration of power sharing in Northern Ireland, the idea of the executive being able to alter the Windsor Agreement, well, that is hugely problematic in and of itself, isn't it?
Well, the hard reality is, Stephen, under the original mandate in 1998, when the Assembly was set up, designation was the way in which the various posts were decided. So if it worked in 1998, why was the St Andrews Agreement introduced in 2006 where the designation was changed. Yes, people can point to what was affectionately known as the Chuckle Brothers routine between the late Dr. Ian Paisley and the former IRA commander Martin McGuinness, but that all eventually fell apart. So it has to be renewed, and that's why this MOT is vitally needed. And that's why I say specifically the spark plug of designation. The other thing is, you mentioned about the Windsor framework. We have to be realistic. It's under its present condition, it's simply not going to get the Stormont executive back. So that the carrot, the sweetener that can be used to get it back is to allow the Assembly to have significant legislative powers to change it where necessary, so as we can get the executive up and running for the benefit of all the people in Northern Ireland.
It's astonishing that Stormont hasn't sat for a year now, is it? A year?
Yes, this is one of the crazy things about the peace process. Here we are celebrating the Silver Jubilee of what is one of the most historic agreements in the history of Northern Ireland, and we still have no functioning executive.
Is that going to... How long are we going to see this happening? I mean, how long is it going to take before they do get back into Stormont and start running the country? Because no decisions are being... You know, obviously we're celebrating the Good Friday Agreement 25 years in, but nothing else is being decided.
Yes, I can't really see anything happening until after May the 18th. That's the local government elections here in Northern Ireland. And the DUP will not want to risk losing seats, on one hand, to the more hardline traditional unionist Voice, or even to the more softer Ulster Unionist Party and the Alliance Party. So we've got a massive waiting game being played out at the present minute. But the big danger for unionism is that it holds out too long, that the Westminster establishment gets fed up and says a plague on all your houses, and introduces some form of direct rule, which includes some part of Dublin involvement. In other words, the Republic of Ireland having a greater say in the running of this part of the United Kingdom. That is the doomsday scenario that we want to avoid.
Yeah, before that would happen, though, John, Chris Heaton-Harris would force another general election in Northern Ireland, wouldn't he? Which you would only imagine, actually, the DUP could suffer at the hands of the people of Northern Ireland in that. And as you say, perhaps a resurgence for the Ulster Unionists and the Unionist Voice.
Well, what you're also looking at, let's look also at it from the DUP's point of view. There are only a couple of seats, if we go by the largest party, behind Sinn Féin, the IRA's political wing. Now, there's a couple of seats that they could win back again, depending on turnout and proper transfer of votes. If they did that and became the largest party again, then we're in a situation where I would say the DUP would walk into Stormont in the morning.
OK. John, good to see you this morning. Thank you very much indeed. Always good to get your analysis.
Thank you. Right, coming up, it's that time of year again. Hay fever season returns. We'll be speaking to an expert. We'll have tips to avoid any complications, so stay with us for that one.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Deebs & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Jacob Rees-Mogg. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, no, stop arguing. I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment. I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different.
Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics, and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Good morning and happy Easter. You're watching and listening to Breakfast with Stephen and Dawn.
It's coming up for you at about 6:45. We'll be remembering S Club's Paul Cattermole with Stephanie Tecci.
And at 7:20, we'll be talking teachers' pay as the strikes continue to cause disruptions. How much work do teachers actually do?
Yeah, and whether you like it or not, because everyone says, oh, they have really long holidays.
Really long holidays.
They work their socks off. As the child of a teacher, they don't stop. Let me tell you.
Your mum's watching. Morning.
Well, do you know what though? It's frightening when you actually look at the reality of it. When they get home from work and then they have to start marking, marking stuff and reports, and they're in the holidays. They're not just off. They're in doing stuff and prepping
Lessons. Good teachers.
Good teachers.
Yeah.
Good teachers. It is a lot of work, and I don't think we appreciate it. We were talking about what is the best seaside town, because we will be revealing that a little bit later on, because it's there's been some survey award or something. Brian says, I reckon it's Weymouth. You might be right, Brian. You might be right. Joanne says, surely it's got to be Whitstable, such a lovely town with its pretty pastel buildings.
Ah, right. And Graham, meanwhile, gets the vote in another place I went to as a kid, Ventnor on the Isle of Wight.
Oh.
That was our version of posh when we were kids.
Hey,
Going to the Isle of Wight, got on a boat. So thanks for that, for reminding... Thank you. Oh, we could have swum. Wasn't that far. I was a good swimmer when I was a kid.
Well, you swim from to the Isle of Wight?
I could have done, yeah. I was a good swimmer, yeah. Not so good now, obviously. Age happens.
Yeah.
But thank you for Graham. It's a happy childhood memory for me.
Yeah, Ventnor. No, I've never heard of it.
You've never heard of Ventnor?
No.
How can you not... the Isle of Wight? You haven't heard of the Isle of Wight?
I've been to the Isle of Wight when I was very little.
Right.
But I don't remember.
But you've never heard of Ventnor?
No. No, I haven't. It's a new one on me.
It's lovely.
There you go. I'm going to have to go.
Yeah, yeah. You can go to get colour sands on the Isle of Wight. Did you do that when you was a kid?
Do what?
Colour sands.
Colour sands?
Yeah, uh-huh.
What's that?
Sands that are coloured. I know, it's a thing. You put them in, before health and safety came in, used Allen Bay, I think it was called, on the Isle of Wight, and they've got different coloured sands in the cliffs.
Oh.
So you'd go and get a little glass test tube, or you could get one shaped in dog or something like that. And you, as I said, health and safety, you can't do it now, but you used to go along and scrape the different colour sands into your test tube. So you'd have pink, yellow, orange, white, black. It's a thing. I'm not making it up.
Oh, there you go.
You have to go. I've sold it really well.
You have, yeah. Well, we want to go and scrape the cliffs on the Isle of Wight.
I don't think you can anymore.
We're not left.
They stop all the fun.
I know, I'm sure you can buy nice, sort of fakely coloured ones.
It's not the same.
Anyway, it's something to look forward to for the summer. But what we won't be looking forward to when the weather gets nicer is pollen, because the Met Office has issued the first high pollen warning of the year.
It feels like we haven't... It's not spring yet, is it? Well, it's officially, I guess. I know, but it's still cold this morning. Right. Anyway, this comes as NHS data reveals approximately 20% of the country suffer seasonal allergies triggered by pollen.
Yeah, doctors are warning that excessively rubbing your eyes can lead to eye disease and long-term complications. That actually can't come as any surprise.
Surely poking yourself in the eyes is not a good idea.
No.
Right, well, here to discuss this in a more serious way than we are at the moment is an
optometrist.
Optometrist, thank you. At Marble Arch Eye Centre, Mohammed Al-Kildare.
Good to see you this morning.
Good morning.
Why is pollen so bad this weekend? Do we know?
Well, during this season, pollen definitely picks up, and it can start really affecting the eyes in a negative way, such as rubbing, itching, redness, swelling. There's a few ways it can sort of cause some symptoms. In some people, it's not so bad, but in some people, it gets quite bad and affects the quality of life. With regards to rubbing the eye itself, it can cause further problems such as infections, burst blood vessels in the eye, and more serious issues like keratoconus. Keratoconus has been linked with rubbing of the eyes. It basically makes the cornea thin, and it causes it to bulge forward like a cone, and it can cause irreversible reduced vision, which can't be corrected with things like glasses.
You've got to be very careful with all of this then. I mean, I guess most people, though, avoid all this sort of thing, do they, by taking the antihistamines and trying to reduce that level of infection and irritation. But what else can people do? I mean, is there anything that an optometrist can recommend?
So there's simple things like cold compresses, which can alleviate itching straight away. But as you said, you know, antihistamines is the quick, sort of easy fix that can be taken from over the counter from any pharmacy. But then there's also eye drops, which come under a type of chemical called mast cell stabilizers. These can be used, ideally they would be used a week before the symptoms start, because it takes a few days for it to become effective. So when the person, for example, knows that during this high pollen season that they get really itchy eyes, or they really start rubbing their eyes or sneezing, that's the time to start taking these drops maybe a week beforehand.
And simple practical solutions that people can do if they're going outside, like maybe wearing wraparound sports sunglasses and things like that. Would that help if you're going out and about this weekend?
Maybe to a certain extent, but because if pollen's coming in from the sides, if there's a small gap in the glasses or something like that, it's quite likely that pollen will get inside. Yeah.
I've got to ask, because we've been talking over the last few weeks, we've been talking about dental health and how there's a concern that people aren't looking after their teeth, partly because of down to the cost of living. Dentists are expensive, as are optometrists. You know, it's expensive going for your glasses. There doesn't seem to be any way around it. Are you seeing a drop-off? Is there concern over what is happening with our eye health in this cost of living crisis?
Well, to be honest, because, as an optician, we see both NHS and dental patients. And, with regards to the NHS, there are people that can be seen for free, whether they're receiving some sort of help from the government, or they're diabetic, or, for example, they've got glaucoma in their family. It's all free for them. And then they also get free glasses as well. So that's from their expense point of view. If people are on low income, it's not so bad. But it's important to understand your options, because some opticians do try to obviously upsell everything. But I think it's a case of trying to provide the best option within the person's budget.
Yeah, because you only get one set of eyes.
Oh, tell me about it. And there's nothing you can do. Is there anything you can do? This is a personal thing here, I'll get into that age. Is there anything you can do about needing reading glasses as you get older?
Yes. Well, there are other options, for example, contact lenses. So there's multifocal contact lenses which will correct you for that. And then there's also implantable lens, which is a type of surgery which basically they remove the lens from your eye, your natural lens, and put a new lens inside, which again works like a multifocal and allows you to see in the distance and near.
Oh, well,
Right.
that's quite a serious option.
That
though,
sounds quite, yeah, the
it
glasses.
does. Still, it's worth
seem a
looking
bit
into.
more simpler, yes.
Mohammed Al-Kiladar, good to see you. Thank you very much indeed. It is depressing when you go to the opticians and they say, yes, well, I think you need to move on to varifocals.
Oh, don't.
now.
I know.
And you just think, what?
I know, don't.
Am I that old? But actually, they're brilliant.
Are they?
Yeah.
You know what? I
yeah.
end up doing this, Stephen, right? OK, only for reading, by the way, and I put them on the end of my nose
I
and
know.
gaze over them like
a headmistress.
Yes, like a headmistress. So...
Yeah.
Meant to be quite sexy, no? Not doing it?
It doesn't do it for me, Dawn. I've got to be perfectly honest.
Oh.
But there you go. Anyway, don't go anywhere. We've got lots heading your way, including all the papers, and we've got a treat for you today. Nikki Hodgson.
Oh, my God.
I joined GB News because I was sick and tired of not hearing my views being represented, not just mine, but so many people that I knew and spoke to.
I just couldn't get my voice out there. I couldn't say anything. I couldn't do anything. Whatever the narrative was, I kind of had to follow it.
GB News is there to provide a voice for those who have been ignored by the establishment media. We think different things, we've got a different style.
GB News is here to be optimistic and positive about the future.
It's real kind of dynamic and flowing, with the audience very much at the heart of it, like a big family.
Here at GB News, we talk about the things that matter to you.
Hearing the voices from right across our towns and cities, especially our towns.
All sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion.
We're on a mission here to make a difference. And the GB News family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
You're an inspiration to us all.
Clip that bit up.
Well, you are.
That's my ringtone. My political ambitions those days are gone, I can tell you. She's only teasing. Go on. He's probably going to want to lay down now. I'll give him 2 minutes to have one. Let's respectfully disagree. That's what we like on Jubes and Kerr. Come and join us. GB News, The People's Channel.
Michelle Dewberry, weekday evenings at 6 o'clock.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage. Here on GB News, we will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
Welcome back, and good to have you with us on this gorgeous Saturday Easter weekend.
Just where you were going. This is Breakfast with Steve
the weekend's
Dawn.
gorgeous.
The weekend's gorgeous,
Not
yeah.
you.
Is it?
I didn't say you. I said the weekend.
Is it all right today? It was a bit cold this morning.
It's cold, but the sun's out.
Is it?
Yeah.
All right, there you go.
Well, it was.
Yesterday. Sorry. Right at 6:37. Anyway, let's have a look at the front pages for you. Start with the Times. Draws attention to Britain's house building crisis. 55 local authorities reportedly suspending development plans.
Meanwhile, in The Guardian, we are told that personalised cancer jabs may be ready in 5 years.
The Mail gives light to the Princess of Wales reportedly admitting her Windsor walkabout with Harry and Meghan during the Queen's funeral was one of the hardest things she's ever had to do.
You can see that on her face. Right, time to go through the papers now, and this is going to be very interesting. Joining us this morning is the author Nikki Hodgson. Lovely, Nikki, looking gorgeous. Welcome to it. And obviously legendary broadcaster, Mr. Pete Price, is in the building. Good morning to you.
You read that well. You read that well, young Dawn.
I don't.
Loving seeing where you're sitting.
I'm not at all tap dancing through this in any way, shape or form.
No.
No.
But let's kick off with the King. Should we, Pete? he's inviting about 850 people who've had the BEM honour. Yeah. And charity workers and things.
I love it. I absolutely love the story. It's 2 pages. A lot of people are there because of the work they did during the pandemic, and it's a lovely thing to do. So many people are so excited. I think he's really making an effort, trying to cut down on a few bob, and also bringing the right people and getting a little bit rid of the pomp and circumstance and making it more a modern coronation. Of course, I remember. People. I think so, yeah. I mean, I remember the coronation. None of you will, because I'm older than any of you, and older than anybody in the whole building.
It was on your 30th birthday, wasn't it?
He's asked me to sit on this side so he can slag me off.
Oh, I do, yeah. It's fun.
But it was amazing, and the pomp and circumstance was unreal. But it was them and us. It was, you know, that. So it's now a different world we're living in. I like what he's doing, and I think it's a great idea to ask lots of people. I sent a little letter saying, any chance? He hasn't replied.
You haven't had your invite,
He's missed me. But it's a lovely feel-good story. It's just about all the different type of people that are going, and I think it's lovely.
I think it's nice. I do.
It makes it more in touch with the ordinary people, and I think that's what Charles wants to do. King Charles, sorry. That's what King Charles wants to do, doesn't he? He wants to be a people's king.
Yeah.
And actually, you know, unlike the Queen, who was slightly distant, be more in touch. Right, talking of royals, Nikki, we move on to and I remember watching this and thinking she's not comfortable. This is the front page of the Daily Mail today, and this is Kate Middleton admits that Windsor walkabout with Harry and Meghan was one of the hardest things she's ever had to do.
Yeah, do you remember those images of how awkward everybody
was? Yes.
Doing that after the Queen had died. Yeah, so this is actually... the Mail is serialising a new book called Our King by a royal correspondent, Robert Jobson, and he says that Kate told some of the senior royals it was just kind of unbearable what they had to do. Because I think whatever you think about Kate, whether you like her or loathe her, she's clearly somebody who's in touch with her emotions, and she's very good at... She's got lots of empathy, and she's very good at expressing care for other people. It must have been so stressful knowing that all the cameras want you to have a fight. They're analysing every hand movement and every step of your foot. You know, it must have been unbearable and grieving, potentially, as well.
How can anyone hate her? I mean, because I tell you what, there's something about the Princess of Wales. By heck, doesn't she suit that title?
Oh, yeah.
She carries it really well.
So elegant.
She just comes across... I mean, I've never met her, but she comes across as just such a lovely person, actually.
Yeah. Well, I mean, do you remember the author Hilary Mantel, before she died, writing that piece about her saying, oh, she's basically kind of like a doll, and, you know, she's just kind of a figure, a figure for the family, and... she isn't her own person, but I don't think that's true at all.
I don't.
Do you know what I hate? All these serialisations of books, and a royal correspondent said something, and of course they can't answer back. And if they answer back, the royals, you've got the front page for the next 12 years.
Yeah. That's why they don't.
Yeah.
Well, some of them do now, though, don't they?
To be fair, Pete, you know, if you get that in this kind of book with somebody who's got a long history of reporting on the royal family in a certain way, you can almost quite sure that it probably has come from her, because they are very careful about what they say, knowing it will always get to another source eventually.
Yeah,
They're trained to think about that.
I'll tell you what, and Robert Jobson is so well respected.
Yes.
He won't want to risk his own reputation.
Definitely not.
Yeah.
But I get your point.
Yeah, it's just, you know, it's all... I loved, once again, talking about the age thing, I loved in the old days when the royals were there and we weren't, and you wondered if they ever came out to see the real world, and then we found out the Queen did come out. And not the Queen didn't come out. Can I take that back? She didn't come out. Nothing like... I'm getting me dig the hole.
Why did you
Stop digging. Stop digging.
Really dug the hole.
The first rules of holes.
She mixed with the masses.
She mixed with it. But it was them and us again, and it was weird. But now, you know, you can bump into them in a restaurant. It's marvellous. I bumped into Princess Margaret at Cleo Lane's party. I'd had a drink, and I walked in, and she was sitting behind the couch where, you look like Princess Margaret.
What did she say?
Her face was a picture. Luckily, she'd had a drink, so it didn't really matter. And we became mates.
Did you?
Not mates, only at the party. She'd never remember me again.
No.
She pushed me out the way.
You weren't
Showbiz mates.
Invited down to Mystique and sort of like cocktail parties on the beach.
That was quite a good name drop for the start of the
It was, yeah. You're a name dropper, though. We know that. Sticking with the royals, actually.
Theme here.
All the king's horses.
Yes,
as it were, in the Guardian.
All the king's horses. And I want to do it. All the king's men couldn't put Humpty together again, but we can't. It's all about the horses, and it's been revealed that they're selling horses. He's been selling a few horses, in fact. The estate has got £27 million worth of horses. Some of them have been given as presents, and it says here there is no policy requirement for gifts from people who royal family members know personally to be published and declared. Well, why should they? You know, if I gave you a wedding present and you wanted to sell it, it's your prerogative. Why not?
But you gave me a Scouse passport.
You can't sell that.
I wouldn't sell for that money, no.
No, you couldn't. No, but no, listen, horses, I know nothing about it. And of course, we've got Aintree coming up, which we're dead excited about. I'm the only person I worked there for 3 days, but I won't see a horse. I keep away from the horses.
What do you do there?
Oh, go and interview everyone and Ladies' Day and see them outrageously dressed and love it. But anyway, getting back to the story, is the fact that they've got so much livestock. But it was the Queen's hobby, wasn't it, Dawn?
You know what? This is such a typical Guardian story, isn't it? It's not really a story.
It's certainly not a story.
It's like, oh, my God, they're rich, they've got money, they've got horses. Well, stick that on the front of your newspaper and call it a newspaper still.
Well, would it be better if they donated them to charity and then the Garden probably wouldn't have a problem with that, would they?
Well, no.
Probably,
well, exactly, but do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
The story could have gone a different way and then they would have been OK with
it. And what they forget is, too, these horses cost a fortune to keep.
Oh, yeah.
Absolute fortune to keep.
Yeah, they do.
You know, it fills 2 pages.
Well, there you go. In The Independent, Nikki, I mean, we did a lot on this yesterday, and again today, actually, because not only has Rishi Sunak been fired upon, quite literally, by the Labour Party yesterday, they've doubled down, they've done it again with a different issue. Keir Starmer's under pressure to get rid of this and to apologise. You don't get the impression they're going to do it.
No, you don't. I mean, I was sort of thinking back to when I was a child in the 90s, and do you remember that Blair Liar post that was very famous?
Yeah.
The trouble that caused, and that was seen as, you know, pushing the boundaries too far of political campaigning. But I do think this is in very poor taste. And it's interesting that David Blunkett's actually written in the Mail today, sort of saying that we would have never let that happen when I was in. And also, when you mix the issues to do with with law being made and, you know, Rishi Sunak being personally responsible, you really are confusing the public. It's very misleading. So, I mean, I just think it's very poor taste, especially if you're a victim of child sex abuse.
Yeah.
You know, I think it's really, really... It's just so hard.
It's one thing to criticise the government. It's another thing to say that the Prime Minister personally thinks... Of course,
which he obviously doesn't.
No.
Yeah. So I just think, they've pushed it too far, and it's going to bite them, this. I think it's very, very stupid. I don't know who signed it off.
No.
Well, I mean, look, you know, if the buck stops with the leader, then...
That's what they were saying yesterday.
Yeah.
Well, they you know, the very advert implies that the buck, you know, even though our Rishi Sunak was our hedge fund manager when all this, you know, their figures were used, but they're saying, well, the buck stops with him as Prime Minister. Well, OK, if you apply that to these adverts and the Labour Party, the buck stops with Keir Starmer.
It's very American, very Trump-esque. It's, I think it's horrible.
It's not a road
forget
to go
the politics. Say again?
It's not the road to go down, is it?
I don't think so, but it's going to go down that road. You can see it now.
Yeah.
They're feeling their way in to see what's going. It's going to be a messy when it all comes to fruition. When we have our next budget,
have the general election.
The general election.
That will be.
But the irony is, of course, that Keir Starmer was actually Director of Public Prosecutions and did have some responsibility and sway around these kinds of prosecutions and guidelines. So, it just seems very, very silly to me.
They've been putting that clip in of Boris saying about that man, and I won't even say his name. Horrible man.
Well, exactly. Gary, on that one, hi, Gary, says, I think it's awful, but if Starmer wants to go this way, then maybe the Conservatives should put out a poster with an image of Starmer saying, do you think, I'll say the name, Jimmy Savile should have been convicted for sexual crimes? Keir Starmer didn't. Which obviously is not true, but it's as true as the one they've put out about.
Absolutely, yes. Because... Boris Johnson accused our Keir Starmer of that situation, didn't he? It is not true, but then again, nor are these facts on these posters, are they?
Pete, The Times housing targets have been scrapped.
Yeah, not in my backyard. The country is facing housing building crisis after 50 local authorities have scrapped their plans to target, warning the government's going to reform the situation.
Yeah.
What is it? NIMBY. NIMBY card. What annoys me, excuse me, so I live in Merseyside. I live on the Wirral.
No.
Sorry about this.
You hide the accent really well.
I must get a hotel room. So, I haven't used that gag for a few years. I live on the Wirral, which is stunningly beautiful. It's a beautiful part of the world. And there are talks about building houses and Leavers Causeway, there's one name, which is stunning. And there are other brown sites where they could build the houses. I think a lot of the authorities, just one example, a lot of authorities don't think properly and don't protect our country. And it's nothing to do with not in my backyard. I don't mind somebody living near me, but if it's done nicely, then fine, you know. But don't when there's lots of land, down at the docks we need to build more, but it's owned by a company that will do nothing about it.
Yeah.
It's a minefield, isn't it?
It is. You can't keep all the people happy all the time.
No.
Look, we need to leave it there. Pete.
Is that it?
Nikki, that is it. But you're back.
You'll be back.
Oh, you're not throwing me out?
You get our money's worth.
All right.
Yeah, don't go anywhere. We'll see you a little bit later on. In the meantime, let's bring you up to date with what else is going on today at 6:49.
Right, a 26-year-old man has been charged with the murder of a Romanian woman in Northern Ireland. Julia Ibrahim, also 26, was found at a home in Limerick on Tuesday. The suspect is due to appear at Belfast Magistrates Court later today. Labour says tens of thousands of serious offenders have been spared jail while the Conservatives have been in government. The party claims that since 2010, more than 16,000 adults convicted of child pornography offences have handed community punishments or suspended sentences.
Well, it's time this morning to check in with our very own Stephanie Tetchy, who's got all the showbiz news this morning. And often, Stephanie, morning to you.
Morning.
You know, we like showbiz to be nice and bubbly and fun, and there's a lot of great things to talk about.
Stephanie. Yeah.
But do you know what? This news yesterday about Paul Catamol, I could not believe it.
I was shocked. I was in the newsroom and I was like, I had to double take because I was like, it was only in February that we heard S Club 7 are reuniting, which so many fans are looking forward to, because I have to admit, S Club 7 are like the soundtrack to a lot of musical generations of the 90s and the 00s, and Paul was very much a part of that. So to hear that he's died has been quite tragic, and more than anything for the band, it's been quite devastating. They put a statement out last night and said there are no words to describe the deep sadness and loss we all feel. And, you know, they've been together since 1998. So, you know, it's more than music. It's almost like a family. And, you know, with most of these showbiz bands, you all go through your ups and downs.
Well, he's had such a hard time. And it just felt like with this reunion that it might be a chance for him. And indeed, some of the others who are struggling to get back on their feet.
And that's the thing about showbiz and music, especially those bands of the 90s, you know, they were at the height of their success in the 90s. And, you know, once they disbanded, Paul, he faced a lot of emotional challenges in life. He was the first one to leave the band in 2002, and by 2015 he was bankrupt. And, you know, he made so many emotional appearances on TV, including on Loose Women, where he said he had to borrow a shirt.
She brought him one. And I find out of the whole sadness of this story, it was just that little detail that
he had to borrow a shirt, and this is someone who was in a successful band who sold millions of albums. You know, he was on First States Hotel in 2019. Again, he got a bit emotional when he got turned down by one of the women there, and so this was very much going to be his comeback. So to hear that he's died, it's quite upsetting. More upsetting for Hannah as well in the band, because him and Hannah were together for 5 years, and it was only at the beginning of this year that they actually, you know, put aside their differences and said they were going to come back for this tour, which is going to be in October, and it's going to be an 11-date tour around the UK and Ireland. So I think this is going to be something at all that's going to be marred with a lot of sadness.
I say, do we know what's happening with the tour yet, Stephanie? I mean, obviously it's very, very soon.
I think it'll be up in the air, but to be honest, I can imagine the show will have to go on, and they would probably want to do it in Paul's memory and to bring all the fans together to remember the music, because S Club 7, they've got so much good feel-good music, and to put that on the stage, I think it will be a way to heal the grief.
I tell you what's interesting is a lot of the tributes that have come out. I mean, it seems to be everyone just saying he was such a good guy. He was just a nice fella.
Totally. I haven't seen one tribute that's been like, oh, he was like this, he was like that. You know, Sheridan Smith, who went to the National Youth Music Theatre with him, said she was devastated beyond words. She said, we all grew up together in the NYMT, and we lived together for years. He was an amazing man, and my heart breaks for his friends, family and loved ones.
Oh, isn't it awful? We just seem to be going through a whole stage of these...
Well, it was like Paul O'Grady the other week, who I was very lucky enough to interview back in Channel 4's Big Breakfast days. And it's like, it's the good. I know this is such a cliche, isn't it? But the good always seem to be taken too young. I know Paul O'Grady was older, but still young.
Still young.
The only solace I take from when Showbiz characters die is that their art or their work lives on. Like Paul Grady, I can always now look at some of the shows he's did, and the same with this Paul here. It's like we can listen to his music. So I think that's why it's always heartbreaking when these Showbiz characters go, but we do find solace in the work that they've left behind.
Really good point, because when they showed a tribute episode to Paul O'Grady at the weekend, blankety blank, it was the best thing on TV that night. So we don't make TV like that anymore, and we don't make people like Paul O'Grady and Paul Cattermole anymore.
And, you know, it's just inspiring their stories. And, you know, with Showbiz, you have to take the good with the bad, and apparently, and, you know, death is a part of the Showbiz story.
Oh, it is, tragically. Steph, for now, thank you very much indeed. Look, don't go anywhere. We've got all the top stories heading your way. Everything you need to know in the next hour, and more of the newspapers and sport, all after your weather.
Hello, good morning. The fine weather is going to continue for many as we go through today, with some dry, sunny and warm weather for most of us, but things will turn more unsettled as we head towards the end of the long weekend. The reason for the settled conditions is this area of high pressure dominating the picture across the UK currently, but weather fronts waiting out in the Atlantic will reach us as we go through Sunday and later into Monday. Take a look at the picture first thing, and there is some mist and fog across southern parts to watch out for this morning. Also some cloud and outbreaks of rain across eastern northeastern parts of the UK. Elsewhere, it's a largely dry and sunny picture. The cloud in the northeast should break up a little bit, so increasing amounts of sunshine as we head into the afternoon. And in that sunshine, feeling pleasantly warm. Temperatures may be a touch higher than yesterday, with highs of around 16 or 17 Celsius. Across parts of Northern Ireland, it is going to be a bit cloudier, and that cloud increasing as we go through the day, with winds strengthening here too because of this front trying to push in from the west. We will then see a few outbreaks of rain here later on, and some outbreaks of rain for western Scotland overnight too. Otherwise, though, it's looking like a largely dry night, perhaps a bit cloudier than some recent nights. As a result, it may not be quite as cold, though there's the potential for a touch of frost in the most prone spots where we get any clear skies. So Sunday then, getting off to a dry start for most of us. There will be some outbreaks of rain through the morning across parts of Scotland, but they're going to clear their way northwards. Otherwise, and whilst it will be a little bit cloudier than recently, I'm expecting some decent sunshine, particularly across England and Wales, as we head through the middle part of the day. Temperatures with that sunshine will again be on the warm side, so highs of around 17 or 18 Celsius. But notice this wet weather arriving from the west. That's then going to sweep its way eastwards as we go through Sunday night into Monday, bringing a real change to something more unsettled through the rest of the week. There's the potential for something stormy to arrive later Tuesday into Wednesday, with temperatures taking a bit of a dip too.
We've got a brand new lineup every Saturday night on GB News.
From 6 p.m, I'll give you my unique take on the world today.
Then at 7, it's me, Calvin Robinson, with my Common Sense Crusade.
New to GB News is the Saturday 5.
5 times the opinion. Join us every Saturday from 8 p.m. as we debate the week's stories.
With us 4, plus a special guest.
And at 9, of course, it's Mark Dolan Tonight. Brand new Saturday nights on GB News, Britain's news channel.
First and foremost, I am a GB News fan, and I was before I was working here. Just love the fact that we're asking the questions that a lot of establishment media won't ask.
With a bit of a twist, we not only want to inform you, but we want to keep you entertained.
It's worth the drive because you get in and the team's all ready and waiting, they're itching to go, and it's a proper little family.
GB News is the People's Channel.
It's the audience that makes the programme sing.
We're giving our viewers and our listeners a voice. I see the thousands of your letters, tweets, emails, you name it, coming in.
Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it?
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent you.
It's time for something different. It's time for GB News. I'm very patriotic. I believe in Britain. Our best days lie ahead.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Join us here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates. Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m.
What's the scoop?
I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians.
That's right.
As we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight.
We're going to get into trouble.
If it's a big story, we'll be covering it.
Spill some tea on him.
There we go.
But we'll also have some fun.
I wouldn't stick up a bank.
My father didn't love me.
So anyway.
Headliners every night from 11 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Labour double down on their controversial adverts.
Good morning. It's 7 o'clock on Saturday, the 8th of April. Good morning and happy Easter. This is Breakfast on GB News with Stephen and Dawn. And here are your top stories this morning.
Well, the Labour Party has posted another attack ad criticising the Prime Minister. It follows yesterday's row, which saw a wave of criticism from across the political spectrum.
And tributes have been flooding in for S Club 7 star Paul Catmull, who has died unexpectedly at the horribly early age of 46. The band's manager, Simon Fuller, called him a beacon of light. We'll have more on the latest reaction for that.
And where do you think is the best place to visit for a mini break, staycation, or maybe even just a day trip in Britain? New research has revealed a seaside town has won the crown for the best Easter destination. Stay with us and we'll tell you where it is.
I can't wait. The excitement mounts. And there's more. We all love our pets and everyone is a hero to us. We've been meeting one dog who has been nominated for a very special doggy award. You won't want to miss the gorgeous Mia and her equally lovely owner coming up later in the show.
And we would love to hear from you. You know how to get in touch. Just drop us an email, gbviews@gbnews.uk. Well, Labour has doubled down on its attacks on the government with the release of another controversial poster on Twitter.
Yesterday, they claimed on Twitter the Prime Minister did not think that child abusers should be sent to jail.
Well, following the publication of the tweet, we asked the Shadow Culture Secretary Lucy Powell if Keir Starmer should apologise.
No, I don't think he should apologise. These are election graphics. These are political graphics, which, as I say, are not something that I designed or wrote. Well, look, they're not my words. They're not words I've chosen. But what I am saying to you, as somebody who's been asked to talk about the issues that we are highlighting today, regards to these huge figures that we are unveiling, is that these serious offenders, some of them are not getting the custodial sentences that they should be.
You see, she wanted to keep going back to talk about the issue. But we're saying the poster detracts from the issue.
It takes it away. We're not talking about the issue we should be talking about, and basically it's factually not accurate.
No.
But apart from that, good effort.
But, you know, undeterred, they've done it again. This time it says, do you think an adult convicted of possessing a gun with intent to harm should go to prison? Rishi Sunak doesn't.
Yes, he does, because it's 5 years imprisonment for that. In any case, let's see what freelance journalist and Conservative commentator Reem Ibrahim thinks of this one. Reem, I mean, the first rule of holes, stop digging, unless you're Labour, in which case, carry on to Australia.
Of course, but I mean, it's clearly intentional, isn't it? They're trying to get us to talk about the Labour Party's policy, because, you know, as of yet, we haven't heard too much about what their policies are on a variety of issues, including law and order. And now, of course, we're sat here talking about it because they are pushing forward this sort of very Trumpian political smear campaign.
But are we? I mean, this is the thing. I can understand the tactic of saying it gets us talking about an issue. As I was saying to the Shadow Minister yesterday, we're not really talking about it. What we're talking about is your campaign strategy.
Exactly, but I don't think they do want us to talk about it. I mean, Keir Starmer, of course, was on the Sentencing Council. So since 2010, I mean, he was sort of part of the process that decided these sentences. And, of course, we know from that figure there was only 4,500 adults that were convicted of assault that were actually imprisoned. So clearly there is a sort of a blame to Keir Starmer. I guess you could blame lefty lawyers rather than the government themselves. Clearly the government have a role to play in this. Clearly there is an issue here with law and order, and we're not stamping down on these crimes quickly enough. However, as you know, exactly as you said, I mean, these sort of Trump-esque sort of political smear campaigns mean that we're talking about campaign strategy and the sort of untruth, these lies are essentially being told by the Labour Party rather than the issue itself.
I just wonder where they're going to go next. Which crime are they going to pick on next? I mean, especially considering that people living in Labour-run areas are twice as likely to be the victim of crime in any case.
Yeah, exactly, and I think it's actually quite offensive to these sexual assault victims that are essentially being used as a political football in order for the Labour Party to sort of get through their campaign. Of course, I mean, I think it's intentional. I think we saw from the post last night about gun control. I mean, it really is an intentional smear campaign, and it's exactly the reason why they use the exact same format. They are trying to get us to talk about it.
There are plenty of people criticise... I mean, look, the big one I can think of off the top of my head was the Brexit boss and all this money is going to go into the NHS. And that was said, a lot of people, whether you agree with that or not, a lot of people said what you are doing are misleading the public and that cannot be right. Well, the facts and figures in these posters underneath in small print may be right, but the main bit of the poster is, in fact, misleading the public.
Well, of course it is. I mean, this notion that the Prime Minister doesn't want to see sexual assault victims in prison is entirely absurd. I mean, it's just not true. It's a lie. But again, it is part of this very toxic political debate that we're seeing being imported from the US to the UK, where we're seeing these sort of toxic debates where they are essentially fake truths. They're not necessarily complete and outright lies, but they are misleading the truth so far so that it appears as though it is a lie. They're conveying or implying something that just isn't true. So it's manipulating those facts. And I think that this is incredibly dangerous. It's toxic. It's dangerous. It's offensive to those sexual assault victims that haven't seen those people prosecuted themselves. It's offensive to them, but also it's unhelpful for political debate.
And it's always very easy when you're in opposition just to sit there and go, well, what they're doing is a bit rubbish. But what I didn't hear yesterday and what I haven't heard overnight is what Labour are actually going to do, backed up by facts and figures, which they're a bit vague on in lots of areas, on how they would tackle the crime problem we're facing in this country.
But this is exactly it, isn't it? They don't want us to talk about the actual issue. I mean, as I said, Keir Starmer was on the Sentencing Council. He is sort of personally partly to blame for this. Of course, the judges and the magistrates themselves are also to blame for this lack of sentencing and the lack of prosecution. The government have failed across the board on the economy, on social issues and on law and order. This is not new. You can criticise the actual policies that the government have been putting forward. For example, the fact that so-called Conservative government, we have the highest tax burden since the Second World War. There are an amalgamation of these policies that the government have continued to fail on. But these toxic political smear campaigns do not help. It essentially means that we are using these victims as a political football. It's unhelpful. It means that we aren't talking about the issue at hand.
Well, look... let's try and balance it out a little bit, because if you're saying the government has failed on law and order, well, we might look like the way the messaging is being done, but it basically says that the government's failed on law and order. So in a way, isn't it a legitimate thing to do?
But it's not just said that the government have failed in law and order. It said that Rishi Sunak, our Prime Minister, does not want these criminals to be in prison. I mean, that is just not true. I mean, you're absolutely right. We all are in agreement that the government have failed, but that doesn't mean that we need to use these lies in order to get there.
I'll tell you what, I mean, with the election coming up, next year?
Probably.
I'm confused about what day it is, let alone what year it is at the moment. But it's like, I don't want the whole campaign to be based around this level of toxicity. We're not America, where it's descending into utter madness. I want to hear what people on all sides are going to do to solve the problems we are all facing. I'm not hearing that.
No, we're not. It is this sort of these personal attacks, isn't it? I mean, they literally have got Rishi Sunak's face on a poster, personally attacking him, claiming that he doesn't want these people in prison. I mean, it is absurd and it's dangerous and it's toxic.
OK. Reem, thank you very much indeed. I'm sure you've got a view on it. gbviews@gbnews.uk. Tony, hi Tony, says, why should Labour apologise? The Tories over many years and different governments have destroyed any confidence in crime detection with poor detection rates and rubbish convictions. They want everything run by volunteers and charities. The UK is in a mighty mess.
Well, it's a point. I mean, Lee says, you know, I know a lot of Tory supporters are very unhappy right now with the Labour smear campaign against Rishi. However, we have to remember there is an election coming and the past shows that any party will use any tactic to win. Which, well, thanks, Lee, but it's utterly depressing, isn't it, that is the case?
Paul, morning Paul, says, I don't remember the Labour Party being tough on crime when they were in power. I don't remember the CPS being tough on crime when Sir Keir Starmer was in charge, do you?
And
Nicola, good point, Nicola. The latest Labour campaign making personal attacks on Rishi Sunak illustrates everything that is wrong with politics today. If you have to focus on unjustified personal attacks rather than use intelligent debate to make a point, then you've lost the argument.
Exactly that.
And that, I think, that's a very salient point.
Yeah,
Nicola.
absolutely sums it up, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It really does.
We've got some clever viewers and listeners.
We have, yeah.
Keep your thoughts coming through. gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Right, OK. Well, let's bring you up to date with what's happening now.
The Foreign Office has appealed for a de-escalation in tensions after two British-Israeli sisters were killed in the West Bank. Their mother is also in a critical condition after their car was targeted in a gun attack near an Israeli settlement. British citizens are also reportedly amongst 6 people injured after a car drove into a group of people in Tel Aviv, leaving 1 person dead.
Awful. A 26-year-old man has been charged with the murder of a Romanian woman in Northern Ireland. Julia Ibrahim, also 26, was found at a home in Limerick on Tuesday. The suspect is due to appear at Belfast Magistrates Court later today.
And more than 850 community and charity representatives from across the UK have been invited to the Coronation. 450 recipients of the British Empire Medal, BEM, have been asked to attend the service at Westminster Abbey. 400 young people will watch from the adjacent St Margaret's Church.
And meanwhile, tributes have been pouring in for S Club 7's Paul Cattermole, who has died incredibly sad at just 46 years old. The band's manager said Paul was a beacon of light for a generation of pop music fans and he'll be greatly missed. Mr Cattermole was found at his home in Dorset on Thursday afternoon. Cause of death is still unknown, but police say there are no suspicious circumstances.
Now, it is quite a weekend because it's the 25th anniversary of the signing of the Good Friday Peace Agreement, with much of the country reflecting on the conflict.
The 1998 deal ended 30 years of violence in Northern Ireland, known as the Troubles, which cost the lives of a staggering 3,500 people.
Well, Arlene Foster, former First Minister of Northern Ireland and, of course, one of our colleagues here at GB News, has sat down with Bertie Ahern, former Taoiseach, who reflected on the key moments in the country's history.
It's no good thinking that we've actually got over these things, and that comes from today's politicians and into the future. I think they have to be talking messages of, you know, of reconciliation and peace and confidence.
I often
and
find
not digging up things, you know.
Yeah, if people don't, you don't have to agree with someone's politics
No.
to have a conversation with them.
No.
And I think we've lost the art of that civic discussion and understanding.
I think a bit of education is of how bad things were is a help when you're trying to go forward, because sometimes, you know, and I find this with students, if I can say those, but sometimes it's simplistic solutions.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, as you know, Arlene, I know, these aren't simplistic issues, and that's a reality we have to understand.
It's like being a fly on the wall watching those two chat, I think, because they're two people who've held these very, very important positions, and these are the sort of head-to-heads that politicians have all the time that we don't get to listen in on.
They're literally sitting down having a cup of tea, talking about such an important subject that is really... It's one of those subjects, Stephen, I find personally, that I hear the words mentioned and I try and concentrate, and it's all a bit scary.
It's very complex.
It is very complex.
What always strikes me with these things is I was producing and reporting back in the 90s when every day we had a Northern Ireland story. There was an attack, there was a bomb, there was a firebomb, there was a riot, there was something going on, and then it stopped, pretty much.
Yeah.
Do we want to go back to that?
No.
Well, why would we? Why would anybody in Northern Ireland want to go back to that? But there's frustration there. There's a lot of frustration and a lot of political issues there. So it's just a fascinating area, and fascinating to hear that conversation between Arlene Foster and Bertie Hearn. You can watch it all in full tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock. It's part of the Camilla Tominey Show.
Right, OK. Earlier, we spoke to political commentator Dr John Coulter, who said the government needs to give the ongoing situation a full MOT.
As a journalist with 45 years of experience under my belt, I would say the situation that we're at now in the peace process as we celebrate the Silver Jubilee of the Good Friday Agreement is the reality is the Good Friday Agreement needs a major political MOT if the peace process is to survive into the next 25 years. I mentioned MOT there as if we're working on a car. There's two major spark plugs that we're going to need to make it succeed. The first one is that we need to return to the original Good Friday Agreement in terms of designations of unionist, nationalist and other. At the present minute, it's the largest party is entitled to the First Minister's position. So from that point of view, we've got to move it away from largest party to largest designation. The other thing, we desperately need the Stormont executive to be restored, but with the power to amend the Windsor framework. That's still the big sticking point, which is preventing the DUP from restarting power sharing here in Northern Ireland. So basically, the spark plug that needs is to give any new future assembly, which is kick-started, the power to seriously amend the Windsor framework. So if it worked in 1998, why was the St Andrews Agreement introduced in 2006 where the designation was changed? Yes, people can point to what was affectionately known as the Chuckle Brothers routine between the late Dr. Ian Paisley and the former IRA commander Martin McGuinness. But that all eventually fell apart. So it has to be renewed. And that's why this MOT is vitally needed. And that's why I say specifically the spark plug of designation. The other thing is you mentioned about the Windsor framework. We have to be realistic. It's under its present condition. It's simply not going to get the Stormont executive back, so that the carrot, the sweetener that can be used to get it back is to allow the Assembly to have significant legislative powers to change it where necessary, so as we can get the executive up and running for the benefit of all the people in Northern Ireland. yes, I can't really see anything happening until after May the 18th. That's the local government elections here in Northern Ireland. And the DUP will not want to risk losing seats on one hand to the more hardline traditional unionist Voice, or even to the more softer Ulster Unionist Party and the Alliance Party. So we've got a massive waiting game being played out at the present minute. But the big danger for unionism is that it holds out too long, that the Westminster establishment gets fed up and says a plague on all your houses and introduces some form of direct rule, which includes some part of Dublin involvement. In other words, the Republic of Ireland having a greater say in the running of this part of the United Kingdom. That is the doomsday scenario that we want to avoid. Well, what you're also looking at, let's look also at it from the DUP's point of view. There are only a couple of seats, if we go by the largest party, behind Sinn Féin, the IRA's political wing. Now, there's a couple of seats that they could win back again, depending on turnout and proper transfer of votes. If they did that and became the largest party again, then we're in a situation where I would say the DUP would walk into Stormont in the morning.
Well, that'll be interesting if that happens.
Oh,
wouldn't it?
gosh. We just hope so. We just can't go back to the Troubles. Just so...
Oh, heck, can you imagine?
Doomsday.
Can you imagine? It will be horrific. And there's been all this increased terror threat over the weekend. The fact that the police have released the information on that hopefully will deter those.
You know, the story happened, I think, a couple of days ago. A little girl, 12-year-old, beaten up by a gang of girls, 12-year-old, and they're treating that as a sectarian hate crime already.
Can't go back to those.
12-year-old kids.
Now, it's thought about 2 million holidaymakers are heading overseas this Easter bank holiday weekend. That's 11% up with last year.
Holidaymakers were warned, though, of queues at the port and were hit with disruption from Rail, airport, basically everywhere you want to go. Our reporter, Theo Chikahomba, has the latest.
This Easter weekend is set to be a busy one for those planning to travel out of the UK and also for those planning to travel into the UK. Here at the Port of Dover, there have been queues during this Easter weekend as people prepare to head over to Calais using the ferries which are here. Now, the Irish ferries say passengers can expect delays of 2 to 3 hours throughout the weekend, but they're advising passengers not to come too early as that may mean more people are stuck in traffic. Away from the port, Network Rail say engineering works are continuing throughout the weekend across the country and passengers are advised to check before they travel. And for those planning to use planes, particularly at Heathrow Airport Terminal 5, strikes are continuing, finishing on Sunday. This is security staff who are members of the Unite Union, and many of them are going to be on strike throughout this weekend. So people who work at the airport, who work in various departments, so it's all hands on deck there to ensure that passengers can get in. But the advice is to carry enough food and drink if you do end up having to wait a lot longer than you anticipated. So it's set to be a busy Easter weekend on the roads, in the air and at the Port of Dover as well.
Yeah, it's just not good, is it? It's just not good. Stay at home. Have a nice time at home.
Watch the telly.
Loads of you getting in touch on... I was going to say, I was looking at hay fever. That's not what I meant. On the Labour poster. Jerry, hi Jerry, says the posters show that Labour think the public are stupid, when in fact they show the public how stupid and nasty new Labour are.
Right, OK, this is interesting. David says, no one thinks Rishi approves of low or no prison sentences for serious offenders, although these adverts do suggest this. It's clickbait to grab attention to this problem. Last point, I do think Rishi is an asset to the Conservatives, one of the rare people these days, it seems, but is surrounded by no marks, very poor quality from the Labour Party.
And interesting, I don't know how relevant this actually is, but it's an interesting point from Alan. Hi, Alan. Lucy Powell is supposed to be the Shadow Minister for Culture and Media. She clearly has no control over what is released into the media. What purpose does she serve?
That's a good point.
It sort of is a good point.
We should have mentioned that yesterday when we were talking to her.
Yeah, it's nothing to do with me.
Media?
That's what she said.
That?
But yeah, so she's looking at all the media, just not any media that comes from the Labour Party.
No.
So, it's probably not within a brief, but nevertheless, it's an interesting point.
That's a good point, Alan. Thank you. Do you want to come and do this job? I mean,
Yeah, no, good. Yeah. I love it. You have some good ideas. We've got much more to come for you on the show this morning. 9 in 10 teachers have said, 90% that is,
wow,
have said that their increased workload has affected their mental health. We're going to be talking more about this in just a few minutes.
I joined GB News because I was sick and tired of not hearing my views being represented, not just mine, but so many people that I knew and spoke to.
I just couldn't get my voice out there. I couldn't say anything. I couldn't do anything. Whatever the narrative was, I kind of had to follow it.
GB News is there to provide a voice for those who have been ignored by the establishment media. We think different things, we've got a different style.
GB News is here to be optimistic and positive about the future.
It's real kind of dynamic and flowing, with the audience very much at the heart of it, like a big family.
Here at GB News, we talk about the things that matter to you.
Hearing the voices from right across our towns and cities, especially our towns.
All sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion.
We're on a mission here to make a difference.
And the GB News family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prisons? I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
And right across the United Kingdom.
You can find us on Sky Channel 512.
Virgin Media Channel 604.
Freesat Channel 216.
Freeview Channel 236.
And YouView Channel 236.
You can also take us with you on DAB Plus Radio.
With the GB News app and at the website gbnews.uk.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Start the day with GB News.
We catch up on all the big stories you didn't hear the night before.
And take a look at what the world's talking about this morning. That's right, Monday to Thursdays from 6 o'clock. It's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Straight after breakfast, join us, Bev Turner and Andrew Pearce. We're going to take you through till noon.
We'll be tackling the big topics of the day, including the things that the other channels just won't talk about. If it's happening here. Wake up to mornings on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
New to GB News is the Saturday 5.
Join us every Saturday from 8 p.m. as we debate the week's stories, controversies and issues.
With us 4, plus a special guest.
It's 5 times the opinion, 5 times the debate,
and 5 times the fun.
The Saturday 5. Saturday nights from 8.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
You could wink at the end.
I can't believe I can't
Britain's
wink.
listening.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
What's up with her? I don't know what's the matter. You can't get the staff these days, ladies and gents. She's in bits. She's in bits. Pull it together, Dawn.
I'm pulling it together. Don't get me started again.
Dawn.
We're going to put... Should we do some bloopers after the show?
We should do some bloopers. There's plenty around.
Are you reading this bit? It's got your name on it.
Oh, I'll read this bit then. Welcome back. It is 7:27. It is very good to have you with us. You're watching and listening to Breakfast with Stephen and Dawn. Still to come.
A bit of horsing around, and that's not what we were doing during the break, by the way. It's the 40th anniversary of Michael Morpurgo's best-selling book, Warhorse. We'll speak to an illustrator who met the author at 8:10.
And at 8:20, we're talking all about the best seaside town to visit after this holiday spot was crowned victorious. Where is it? Well, we'll tell you then.
That's not giving it away, that picture, is it?
Well,
any case, get in touch in all the usual ways. Email gbviews@gbnews.uk or tweet @gbnews.
Now, 9 in 10 teachers surveyed said their workload has increased over the last year. That's in a new poll.
Right, teachers work 54 hours a week on average, and 83% believe their job has adversely affected their mental health over the last 12 months.
Well, let's talk to the chairman of Campaign for Real Education, Chris McGovern, who joins us now. Chris, good to see you, as always. This is going to be a shock to a lot of people, just how much work teachers actually do, because people just go, well, 9 to 3:30 and a lot of holidays, but that isn't the truth, is it?
No, teaching is a full-on job, but I think what we have to understand is that, like being a nurse or a doctor, teaching is a vocation. And I taught for 35 years in all sorts of schools, all sorts of positions in schools. I found the job energizing. So I'm one of those outliers who found that it boosted my mental health. And actually, teachers are in the middle of a pay dispute, so they're going to be pretty pessimistic about their mental health. But it is a great job, but it is a high-pressure job, and perhaps too many people don't realise that. So I support the teachers' call for a pay rise. I'm not so sure, though, that they should be so down on themselves. Teaching is an energising job, or it should be. And if it's depressing you, you shouldn't be in the job, because good teachers have to be happy teachers. And, of course, happy teachers have to be well paid. But, within the school budget, there is plenty of money to pay teachers a good salary. The majority of staff in schools are not teachers. So we need to shift some of the money from the non-teaching staff to the teachers, and we could solve the problem. That's called thinking outside the box. And the Department for Education, which I've advised over decades, isn't very good at that, I'm afraid. But yeah, I sympathise with teachers. They have a case, but teaching is a profession. Sometimes you got to take the fact that it is a challenging job, and if you can't get some energy out of the job, you perhaps shouldn't be in the job.
Thursday, the 27th of April, and Tuesday, the 2nd of May in England, while in Northern Ireland it's the 26th of April. The government have offered a £1,000 one-off payment plus 4.3% pay rise. Now, the average teacher at the moment is on £38,982. Now, to a lot of people watching and listening this morning, that sounds like a lot of money. I mean, do you think that is a fair reflection of what teachers do, that sort of income?
Well, some teachers deserve a lot more than that, and some deserve a lot less. I think internationally, our teachers are paid fairly well. There are some teachers, head teachers, over £100,000. There are some starting who are slightly under 30. But look, as with all jobs, it depends on how good you are. And our campaign has strongly supported the idea that teachers should be well paid. We've got to recruit, motivate, and retain. We don't have a choice about this. Our whole economy, our whole future depends on having good teachers in the classroom. And if we have to pay them well, we have to pay them well. But when we talk about a single salary for a starting teacher, we need to look at actually the quality of those teachers. If you look at the UK, about the majority of teachers are in the lower level academic attainment in terms of degrees. We tend to recruit from the bottom 20% in terms of degree qualifications. Go to Finland, which is seen as a high achieving education system. They recruit from the top 20% of graduates. So we've got to look at the quality. I'm all in favour of supporting teachers and giving them good pay rises, but we have to have quality. And I remember saying on a rival channel that I was asked, how do you decide who are the good teachers? And I said, well, it's a bit like running a football team. We know who the good players are. The parents know who the good teachers are. The children know who the good teachers are. And the head teacher and governors should know who the good teachers are. You have to reward talent. And that's why I say we should have a little bit more teachers getting paid according to their ability, how good they are, and to some extent on how good their results are. But I know it's a difficult task, but then, running a school is difficult. We have to reward talented teachers. It's essential.
I was intrigued when you said, we need to reduce some of the non-teaching staff. I mean, a lot of these people consider themselves to be teachers anyway, even though they're not. But are you talking teaching assistants? Because they seem to be, and it's not to criticise them. There'll be teaching assistants watching this morning, but there seems to be a lot of them where 20 years ago they didn't seem to exist.
Well, according to the government statistics, there are 275,000 plus teaching assistants. Of course, we need some teaching assistants. They are important, or can be very important. But actually, if we reduce the number of teaching assistants, perhaps by 50%, it would change the way teachers teach. Because we have teaching assistants, you can go into any primary school classroom and you'll see one or two teaching assistants, and you'll see the children sitting around tables, half of them with their backs to the teacher. Because we have teaching assistants, it allows that method of teaching to carry on. It's ineffective. If you go to Singapore, China, some of these very successful education systems in the Asia Pacific, and also in parts of Europe, you'll find one teacher at the front of the class and the children all facing the front. So it's cheaper to have one teacher at the front and all the children facing the front than to have two classroom assistants plus a teacher and all sitting around, half of them with their backs to the teacher. It's cheaper and it's much more effective. But if you look at the results in those more traditional classrooms, fewer classroom assistants, you get better results. You get better results. They're about 3 years ahead by the age of 15. So it's a no-brainer, really. You put more money into the teachers' pockets, reduce the number of classroom assistants, and you will get better results because it will mean there'll be more whole class teaching. It is a no-brainer, and we've got to do it. But eventually we will learn this. We've got to improve standards. We don't need so many classroom assistants, and I'm not denigrating classroom assistants. Some of them are essential. They work on a one-to-one basis. They're very important, but we don't need so many. And it's crazy that the majority of staff in school are not teachers.
Chris, really good to talk to you this morning. Lots to think about there. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
So, it's not if you're a classroom assistant, it's not to criticise you.
No.
Do we need to go back to the good old days, as it were?
Well, I mean, we would say that, wouldn't we, being our... I know your mum was a teacher, wasn't she?
Yeah.
So we would say that. I mean, I do remember, as Chris described, sitting in class with the teacher in the front, and woe betide you if you turned around to talk to someone behind you. You were in all sorts of trouble. However, on the other side, I do have a friend who is a teaching assistant, and she works incredibly hard and cares very passionately about the children in her charge. But the more and more work being piled on them, Stephen. Almost every time she goes back for a new term, it's like she's given something else to do.
And they're not qualified teachers,
No,
so how much of the role are they actually doing when they're not qualified to do it? Which worries me a little bit. It's interesting. I think what Chris said was very interesting. If you've got a thought, GB Views at gbnews.uk. Don't go anywhere, though, because it's going to be a fun-packed papers with Pete Price and Nikki Hodgson in just a couple of minutes.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Deebs & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Jacob Rees-Mogg. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, "Nah, stop arguing." I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment. I came to GB News because it's the people's channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different.
Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage. Here on GB News, we will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, the Member of Parliament for North East Somerset and a former government minister. For years, I've walked the corridors of power in both Westminster and the City of London. I campaigned in the largest democratic vote in our island's story. I know this country has so much to be proud of. We need to have the arguments, the discussions on how we make it better. The wisdom of the nation is in its people. Vox Populi, Vox Dei. That's why I'm joining the People's Channel. Join me Monday to Thursday at 8 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News has its own late-night paper preview show, Headliners, where comedians take you through the next day's top news stories. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper, we've got it covered for you. Headliners, every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, on Sunday mornings from 9:30, taking the politicians to task and breaking out of SW1 to see how their decisions are affecting you across the UK. Bursting the Westminster bubble every Sunday morning, only on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain's watching.
You've probably seen politicians interviewed 1,000 times, but we do it differently. We find out who they really are, we don't shout, we chat, and hopefully we bring a bit of light, not just heat. Did you know Kate Moss?
Apparently.
Do you have a pair of jeans or a pair of jeans?
No, of course I don't. What would I do with them?
My friends are like, oh my God, what's she doing now?
Join me every Sunday at 6 for Gloria Meets, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Happy Saturday. Happy Easter indeed. You're watching and listening to GB News with Stephen and me. I'm Dawn. Now, we have to go through the newspapers.
We do, yes. Well, that's a good thing.
It's a very good thing because we have the A-team with us today. We have author Nikki Hodgson and alongside legendary broadcaster Mr. Pete Price. Good morning to you both. Thank you for coming in.
Morning, morning, morning.
Morning. Right.
Let's start with a bit of Paul O'Grady, Pete, should we? This is in the Express. I know.
So the 11th is the final series. Paul's on for the love of dogs. The bit that's got me on this is that the animal hero, our lovely Paul O'Grady, will have fans weeping watching the show as he returns to TV because he says goodbye to Peggy, the dog that stole his heart. And he says, I'm going to get a job on the railway. It's too hard saying goodbye. The man's love of animals is unbelievable. The grief on social media and still in the papers for Paul O'Grady is remarkable and loving. And
I'll tell you what, because a lot of us feel this. A lot of us think, oh well, he seemed like a very nice man. I never met him. You knew him well. What was he actually? I mean, like deep down, actually, if I was meeting him down the pub.
Exactly what you see on the telly. There's no sides to him, except when he puts the frock on. Yeah. Oh, my word. Lily destroyed me. Yeah. There's so many stories which I can't tell because they're all very, very cheeky. He did my roast. I did a roast for my birthday and we raised money. I'm a patron of Clare House, a children's hospice, and all the money went to that. All the money. There was no expenses. And he did the roast. And I've looked at it, played back, and I can't even edit it. He was remarkable. Last time I interviewed him, I've told the story before, he, excuse me, he was in bed, and I said, how are you? And it was late night radio. He said, I don't need to talk to you at this time of night. I'm fed up. Meh. I said, pardon? He said, because, you know, meh. I went, whoa, what's going on? He said, I've got a sheep, a little baby lamb. The sheep won't accept it, so I'm feeding it. So he's got a sheep in bed with him. Yeah.
I just wonder where that story was going then.
Yeah.
Sorry.
It's just amazing, but that was him. Yeah. They're talking about having a statue to him. Yeah, There's over 100,000 people have now signed the petition because I was involved with the Scylla statue in Matthew Street. So it'd be nice to have a statue of him on the Wirral. A lot of work goes in statues, which people know about. But what you saw was what he got. And he also crossed every line. You know, if he didn't like a script, he would rip it up and write it himself. That's why he got where he got today, and he knew when to hang the dress up. He knew exactly what he was doing. He's a very shrewd, clever businessman, but a very warm, kind man. And somebody announced that I died on local television, and it was awful. And he was on the phone to me straight away saying, "What's going on, Price?" That was the last time I spoke to him. I miss him very, very much indeed. He's left grandchildren, his daughter. We've got the funeral coming up soon. It's just...
Well, hopefully that funeral will be a riot.
Hopefully.
It will be. It'll be a celebration.
He spoke at Scylla's funeral, and he was tremendous there. Tremendous there. But, I mean, the relationship between him and Scylla was just outrageous. When we were all together, it was... but you can't repeat any of it.
No, that's the good thing about it. Well, it'd be nice. It's nice to think of him actually, which is quite amusing.
It's going to be hard to watch this series, and I bet the ratings will be crazy.
You know what? I haven't heard anyone say a bad word about him.
Not one.
That's
not
so
one.
unusual.
Yeah. Dawn, not one person.
I like a bit like that baby sheep. I was lucky enough to go to bed with him one morning.
On the big breakfast.
On the big breakfast, yeah. And, you know, we have bits of paper here that we actually read religiously. He got it and threw it away. So we ended up swapping makeup tips. And his was better than mine as well, which was... careful. Be careful.
Right. I need this list because I need to talk about what to talk about next. And this one, in The Guardian, Nikki... because there's been so much work done on cancer and the DNA of cancers and what we're susceptible to. The Guardian's talking about personalised cancer jabs in 5 years.
Yeah, so what The Guardian is saying is because of the rollout of the COVID vaccine and how quickly people had to work to develop it, it's actually pushed forward progress in developing cancer vaccines. They're saying that within 12 to 18 months, they've made the same progress as they would have done in 15 years previously. And obviously, you know, cancer affects, 1 in 2 people now in a lifetime. It's shocking how many of us will get cancer. And, this is just basically saying that, because of that scientific evolution, they're able to apply it to things like cancer and also other things, respiratory infections and autoimmune diseases, which are very difficult for people to live with in a lifetime.
How is it going to work?
The devil is in the details.
Right,
so
okay.
it's to do with something called mRNA-based therapy.
It's like they do these wonderful... You know, someone I love very, very much is going through cancer treatment at the moment. And it's like, you know, you see these headlines, and if you are going through this, you'll know what I'm talking about here. You'll see these headlines, and you go, oh, my God, that's amazing, that's wonderful news. And then you go through it, and as you say, the devil's in the detail.
Yeah, so what they're saying
is... very sketchy on detail.
Yeah. I mean, what they're saying is they'll take a biopsy of the cancer cells, and then, therefore, they'll have enough information about what that particular cancer is and how it's attacking the body to personalise the vaccine that you're given. So that's the idea behind it, but it's very, very clever.
Rather than chemo,
rather than generic chemo.
Oh, absolutely, no, awful treatment. So,
good news, anyway.
Yeah, I think it's great. Not good news in the Mail, Pete, for 400,000 pensioners facing a tax bill for the first time.
No. Sorry, I've got another one. Right,
what you want.
No, I was going to... Well, I've got that one as well, but I was going to talk about the chaos on the roads.
Oh, well, go on.
Have a Paul O'Grady moment. It's what he would want.
The queues here for Easter, the trains, the motorways, there's photos everywhere. It's chaos. Now, I picked this story because there's a group of us came down from Liverpool, so we come down the M6, M1. Yeah. I've never seen chaos like it yesterday. The toll road going from Birmingham back, there was a 2.5 mile tailback to pay to go through the toll. That's just for one. Now, I always get the train down here to do GB News. The trains are now stopping at Rugby and 2 other stops to get bus services. I mean, it's absolutely ludicrous. And then where I live on the Wirral going to Liverpool, there was a 9-mile tailback trying to get into North Wales. It's absolute chaos. And yet when we got into London, we came down, we sailed into London. It was great. Absolutely great.
It's sickening, actually. Why can we not get this working?
Because it's Easter, it's a bit unexpected. It doesn't happen every year.
And and the potholes on motorways are a disgrace. In all roads, sorry, not motorways, all roads, but I've never seen potholes like it on motorways.
No,
oh, my word.
Terrible. I got 2 punctures in a fortnight a couple of years ago on the M25. It was an absolute
Why are they
nightmare.
getting so bad at the moment? But we've got another car story, and this one's quite fun.
Yeah.
Moving on from potholes. Nikki, this is your story.
It is. Peeping Teslas. So Teslas look like the car that everybody wants to drive, but apparently the in-car cameras are spying on us, and the employees at Tesla that have access to the footage have been passing around some of the rude bits.
Whoa, hold on.
Amongst themselves in the office. So the important thing to remember is that the cameras in the cars, that footage doesn't just go to some kind of technological bank where it's held and no humans see it. There are real people viewing it to security check. And what's been happening is the employees at Tesla have been having a good old laugh about some guy that approached his car naked, for example, and shared that round the office in the chat. And it's just that point of we have all these surveillance devices in our homes and our lives. Of course it is.
Can they do that?
But people, people with licence to look at these images, don't always do the right thing with them.
That is a bit worrying.
So just be a bit careful if you're around your car camera, that's all.
What about surveillance cameras in the house?
Well, I've got cameras in my home.
Yeah.
I've always had them. Tell you what I've just done.
I don't always have my clothes on.
Tell you what we've done. We've changed the system because I live in a block of flats, and we've changed the system now where you walk in and the light comes on. So I'm at the very top. So I do my act about 12 times. Every time the light comes on, I go into my act. I had to take the light off in the fridge because every time I went in for the milk, I did my act, and it's not the best act in the world.
Yeah, we've got baby monitors now, so be careful what you say on the second floor.
Oh, baby monitors.
You've got to be
yes.
very careful around the baby monitors.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
very careful.
It's a nightmare. Look, we're leaving it there. Thank you very much indeed, you two. But we shall catch you a little bit later on. Now, I want to talk about the... I'll just run you through some of the top stories, actually, at 9:49.
Right.
The Foreign Office has appealed for de-escalation intentions after 2 British-Israeli sisters were killed in the West Bank. Their mother is also in a critical condition. British citizens also reportedly among 6 people injured after a car drove into a group of people in Tel Aviv.
Right, and a 26-year-old man has been charged with the murder of a Romanian woman in Northern Ireland. Julia Ibrahim, also 26, was found at home in Limerick on Tuesday. The suspect is due to appear at Belfast Magistrates Court later today.
And here's some positive news for you. Glorious sunshine, temperatures as high as 18 Celsius could make tomorrow the warmest day of the year so far. Forecasters say high pressure has timed itself nicely with sunny days expected over the bank holiday weekend. The UK could be warmer than Greece, but we are expecting rain on Monday.
But there's always but, isn't it? It's bank holiday and it's going to rain. Of course it's going to rain. It's a bank holiday. The weather knows that.
Yes, it does.
But talking of sunny, we have the lovely... sunny,
definitely.
but with a sad story.
I know.
Poor Paul Catamol.
I know. It's. I think a lot of fans, S Club 7 fans, are probably just processing it all. And the thing with S Club 7, they appeal to the older music fans. Like they spoke to a musical generation of the 90s and the 00s, and if you think of classics such as Reach, and
very catchy little
it's
tunes.
so catchy, and I think a lot of people were looking forward to them reuniting as a 7-piece later this year for the tour that they announced, the 25th anniversary tour in October, which is 11-date tour across the UK and Ireland, and obviously now that's going to be marred due to Paul's passing, but I'm hoping that they still very much do continue with the tour in memory to him and as a tribute to
I
him.
hope they still call it S Club 7 and not just S Club.
Well, because I think they still went by S Club 7 after he left in 2002. They still continued as a, S Club 7 despite him leaving. So I think they won't change that name. It's the appeal of it, and it'll be hard for them to kind of not talk about him not being there anymore.
Yeah.
But, he did live a life which had a lot of emotional challenges after he left the band. He faced bankruptcy. He was trying to get on shows like I'm a Celebrity, and I remember he saying that the producers wouldn't let him on because they were saying he wasn't famous enough. And, there's always that dark side of showbiz, it's all the glitz and glamour, but once these people leave the limelight, they face really tough times. And I was actually looking forward to him more talking about his his story and what he had been through, because this would have been his year of his big comeback.
Yeah. And I mean, he had to sell his Brit Award.
He did, yeah.
He
said he sold it in, I think, 2015 on eBay. He was like, bills need to be paid. And I think a lot of our viewers might remember that, you know, appearance on Loose Women where he had to borrow a shirt to be on there. And he was later on First Dates Hotel, and he was a bit emotional about that. But he left music to his side. It was in 2021 he actually started clairvoyancy, and where he was giving readings and he was asking for donations in order to exchange for a reading. So, you know, he was finding his path.
So you could actually go and have a clairvoyance reading by him?
Yeah, and he was exchanging it for donations. And but today I'm really feeling it for Hannah Spirit, because they were together for 5 years, and it was only this year they managed to put their differences aside, and they said they were going to go back on tour together. And so I can imagine she must be feeling quite devastated this morning.
I mean, I tell you what, it's been quite a ride for a lot of members. Obviously, Jo Amara had her own issues. Hannah has been in the paper recently
about her own
homeless.
I
mean, there's quite a few of them. I mean, Rachel Stevens did all right.
Yeah, she did. I think she's the only one that's managed to, you know, stay steady during her career.
I mean, John had a West End career, didn't he?
He did, but again, when you've made your success through a band, especially during the 90s, you always tend to go back to the band because that's what people know and love you for. And when you try to leave that, it's a very hard road to kind of pave your own way and to have your own name in lights. And especially with a lot of these 90s bands, we hear of the horror stories they go through once they leave. But I'm hoping that there will be some positivity to this.
Well, yeah, let's hope so. At least it'll be well remembered. That's little consolation at the moment. Stephanie, thank you. We'll see you a little bit later on. Look, we've got more on that and all the day's top stories coming up for you in just a few minutes. But first, you better check out your weather.
Hello, good morning. The fine weather is going to continue for many as we go through today, with some dry, sunny and warm weather for most of us, but things will turn more unsettled as we head towards the end of the long weekend. The reason for the settled conditions is this area of high pressure dominating the picture across the UK currently, but weather fronts waiting out in the Atlantic will reach us as we go through Sunday and later into Monday. Taking a look at the picture first thing, and there is some mist and fog across southern parts to watch out for this morning. Also some cloud and outbreaks of rain across eastern northeastern parts of the UK. Elsewhere, it's a largely dry and sunny picture. The cloud in the northeast should break up a little bit, so increasing amounts of sunshine as we head into the afternoon. And in that sunshine, feeling pleasantly warm. Temperatures may be a touch higher than yesterday, with highs of around 16 or 17 Celsius. Across parts of Northern Ireland, it is going to be a bit cloudier, and that cloud increasing as we go through the day, with winds strengthening here too because of this front trying to push in from the west. We will then see a few outbreaks of rain here later on, and some outbreaks of rain for western Scotland overnight too. Otherwise, though, it's looking like a largely dry night, perhaps a bit cloudier than some recent nights. As a result, it may not be quite as cold, though there's the potential for a touch of frost in the most prone spots where we get any clear skies. So Sunday then, getting off to a dry start for most of us. There will be some outbreaks of rain through the morning across parts of Scotland, but they're going to clear their way northwards. Otherwise, and whilst it will be a little bit cloudier than recently, I'm expecting some decent sunshine, particularly across England and Wales, as we head through the middle part of the day. Temperatures with that sunshine will again be on the warm side, so highs of around 17 or 18 Celsius. But notice this wet weather, though, arriving from the west. That's then going to sweep its way eastwards as we go through Sunday night into Monday, bringing a real change to something more unsettled through the rest of the week. There's the potential for something stormy to arrive later Tuesday into Wednesday, with temperatures taking a bit of a dip too.
First and foremost, I am a GB News fan, and I was before I was working here. Just love the fact that we're asking the questions that a lot of establishment media won't ask.
With a bit of a twist, we not only want to inform you, but we want to keep you entertained.
It's worth the drive because you get in and the team's all ready and waiting, they're itching to go, and it's a proper little family.
GB News is the people's channel.
It's the audience that makes the programme sing.
We're giving our viewers and our listeners a voice. I see the thousands of your letters, tweets, emails, you name it, coming in.
Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it?
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent you.
It's time for something different. It's time for GB News. I'm very patriotic. I believe in Britain. Our best days lie ahead.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Join us here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Here on GB News Live, we'll be keeping you in the picture, finding out what's happening across the country and finding out why it matters to you. We'll have the facts fast with our team of reporters and specialist correspondents. Wherever it's happening, we'll be there from 12 noon on TV, radio and online. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. Join me on GB News on a Sunday morning for topical discussion, debate, arts and culture, and sometimes even ethical dilemmas.
I don't always agree with you, Michael.
Michael Portillo, Sundays on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
You're an inspiration to us all.
Clip that bit up.
Well, you are.
That's my ringtone. My political ambitions are, those days are gone, I can tell you. She's only teasing. Go on. He's probably going to want to lay down now. I'll give him 2 minutes to have one. Let's respectfully disagree. That's what we like on Jubes and Kerr. Come and join us. GB News, the People's Channel.
Michelle Dewberry, weekday evenings at 6 o'clock.
I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m.
What's the scoop?
I'll be joined by 2 of the country's top comedians.
That's right.
As we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight.
We're going to get into trouble.
If it's a big story, we'll be covering it.
Spill some tea on him.
There we go.
But we'll also have some fun.
I wouldn't stick up a bank.
My father didn't love me. So anyway.
Headliners every night from 11 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We've got a brand new lineup every Saturday night on GB News.
From 6 p.m, I'll give you my unique take on the world today. Then at 7, it's me, Calvin Robinson, with my Common Sense Crusade.
New to GB News is the Saturday 5.
5 times the opinion. Join us every Saturday from 8 p.m. as we debate the week's stories.
With us 4, plus a special guest.
And at 9, of course, it's Mark Dolan Tonight. Brand new Saturday nights on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Labour double down on their controversial adverts.
Good morning. It's 8 o'clock on Saturday, the 8th of April, Easter Saturday. And this is Breakfast on GB News with Stephen and Dawn. And here are your top stories this morning.
Well, the Labour Party has posted another attack ad criticising the Prime Minister. Follows on from yesterday's row, which saw a wave of criticism from actually right across the political spectrum.
Indeed. Meanwhile, tributes have been flooding in for S Club 7 star Paul Catmull, who has died unexpectedly at the age of 46. The band's manager, Simon Fuller, called him a beacon of light. Stephanie Tackey will be taking us through the rest for later on.
Now, what's the best place to visit for a mini break, a staycation, even perhaps just a day trip in Britain? Well, new research has revealed the seaside town which has won the crown for the best Easter destination. We'll tell you where that is this hour.
Those pictures are giving it away, I'm sorry. But any case, and we all love our pets and everyone is a hero to us. We'll be meeting one dog who has been nominated for a very special doggy award. You won't want to miss the lovely Mia and her owner coming up later in the show.
Yeah, you probably think your pet deserves an award. You can always send us the picture and we'll be the judge of that. Thank you very much indeed. Just drop us an email, gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Labour has doubled down on its attacks on the government with the release of another controversial post on Twitter.
Yes, yesterday they claimed on Twitter that the Prime Minister did not think that child abusers should be sent to jail.
Of course. Following the publication of that tweet, we asked Shadow Culture Secretary Lucy Powell if Keir Starmer should apologise. Here's what she had to say.
No, I don't think he should apologise. You know, these are election graphics. These are political graphics, which, as I say, are not something that I designed or wrote. Well, look, they're not my words. They're not words I've chosen. But what I am saying to you, as somebody who's been asked to talk about the issues that we are highlighting today, regards to these huge figures that we are unveiling, is that these serious offenders, some of them are not getting the custodial sentences that they should be.
Well, they've gone and done it again. This time the advert says, do you think an adult convicted of possessing a gun with intent to harm should go to prison? Rishi Sunak doesn't.
Yes, he does. That's a lie. Any case, let's see what writer and broadcaster David Alroyd-Bolt makes of this one. David, thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
Good morning. What do you make of this one?
I think it's a massive own goal for Labour because Keir Starmer, when he was Director of Public Prosecutions in 2012, sat on the committee that decided the sentencing guidelines for sex crimes of this sort that said that there should be no automatic prison sentence. So it's a very easy open goal for the Tories to turn around and say, well, first of all, this is a crass and stupid Americanised idea of a personalised political campaign, because Rishi Sunak wasn't even an MP for half of the time that the Labour Party have taken the figures for this. And second, really, it's your leader who decided, when he was in a position of serious political and legal power in this country, that this should be the case. And as for gun crimes, which party was it that last really looked at gun sentencing crimes in this country? It was the Labour Party after Dunblane. You know, we had the Dunblane massacre in 1996. The Tories set it in train, and then the Labour Party had a real tightening up of all the rules around guns, around handgun usage, around rifle usage, around shotgun usage, and around the possession of ammunition. So if the Labour Party thinks that there is something wrong with the sentencing, it has only to look to its own previous administrations to find out why.
Yeah, but Lucy Powell was saying yesterday, you know, this is about how we are funding the judiciary, how we're funding the police force. It's the whole crime and punishment area, the political side of that area, which is failing now, and therefore it is the government's fault.
I think there's an aspect to that, but she isn't, or that rather the Labour Party is not making that point in these poster campaigns. The Labour Party is trying to blame the Prime Minister personally for things, most of which had nothing to do with him because he was still a university student at the time. I think it's a rather silly way of going about bringing up a rather serious issue. And if the Labour Party wanted to have a conversation about sentencing, if they wanted to talk about the failure of policing in this country, they could do it in a way that I think was more effective and that had more likelihood of getting the Conservatives involved in a conversation which the country needs. And it's yet another instance of Labour failing in their duty as an opposition because they're not actually getting the government to address problems.
But what is interesting with this one, it's what I'm slightly struggling to get my head around, is, you know, for those people who understand how politics works, the consensus was yesterday, well, at some point someone's going to apologise, it's going to be taken down from Twitter, bit of a cock-up. And yeah, what they've done is doubled down and released another one.
Well, I wonder if they're starting to think that maybe there is an appetite in the country because people are so fed up with the Conservatives as a party of government, rather than any particular policies, they've just had enough of them, that they can attack the Prime Minister personally. I think it's a misjudgment. I think, like you, I expect that there will be, if not a retraction, there'll be a taking down of the tweet, because what does it serve? I mean, you could see there that Lucy Powell was not enjoying being sent out onto the front lines to defend what is an overtly crass and silly campaign. The fact that Emily Thornberry has now waded into it to say there's nothing wrong with it just proves yet again that Emily Thornberry is one of the most ridiculous politicians in this country, who's done more to bring down the standard of debate than anyone else I can think of on the Labour Party benches recently.
I mean, even Diane Abbott, who's a fairly big gun in the Labour Party, has come out and said this was a bad idea. We should not have done it.
When Diane Abbott decides that it's become too partisan and too personal, you know that you've made a real political mistake here. And I don't see what the Labour Party thinks it's going to gain, because if its own supporters agree with them, well, they've convinced no one, and you'd expect them to despise the Tories. And any sort of wavering voter looking at this will think, hang on, this isn't really getting to the heart of the issue. You're flinging mud at the Prime Minister.
But will they? Will they? Are they treating the British public as being a bit stupid and saying, if we put this out there, people will believe it.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what they're thinking. And my point is that the British public will look at that and go, well, no, it's nothing to do with Rishi Sunak, really, because the issues far predate him, and he's only been in the job for 5 seconds, practically. You know, historically speaking, he has nothing to do with this. And if the Labour Party really wants to talk about sentencing, then it must address its own record first.
Yeah.
It does appear to be that Rishi Sunak, a lot of people now think he's not doing too bad a job, and the polls are showing the two parties actually getting closer.
Yeah.
With the election coming up, do you think there is even a tiny chance that Rishi Sunak can turn it around completely and the Conservatives could actually win the next election?
I think there's more than a tiny chance, and the direct historical comparison is with 1992, where you had a Conservative Party in government that was not particularly liked at that point. You would change from Mrs Thatcher to John Major. He had some headway, and you had an opposition leader who was not particularly liked across the country either. So it was sort of better the devil you know, and I think this is exactly the case now. We've changed Prime Minister, we've got sort of a fresh face. There does seem to be some momentum for Mr Sunak, and Sir Keir Starmer has been in the job for quite a while now and just doesn't seem to be getting the personal approval ratings that he would need in order to beat the Conservatives at the next election. Now, of course, you know, a week's a long time in politics, so it could be that next week the entire global economy crashes and, you know, Keir Starmer can say, well, look, the Conservatives can't deal with it. But I think on the current tracking of polls, it's entirely likely that you could see a small Conservative majority scrape back.
Yeah, but it's going to be interesting. We've got we're in that period where we need to be careful what we say about the local elections coming up, of course. But, I mean, and that's what these campaign ads are based around, the local elections. I mean, it's going to be very interesting to see how... I know they don't always transfer into a general election, but nevertheless, it's going to be interesting.
It'll be interesting because a lot of the places that the Labour Party would hope to win... if they go Labour at the local level, it doesn't really, I think, track to the national level. And anyway, I'm not sure that people are that angry with the Conservatives. They're more, it seems to me, from reading opinion polls and reading political tracking, that they're just a bit fed up generally. I don't think there's a sense of real anger. There isn't the ire that there was in 1996-7, when the Conservatives got an absolute drubbing at the local elections, and then, of course, Mr Blair won his enormous landslide. I don't get the sense that there is that feeling in the country. There's just a general discontent. Now, that could play through to the Labour Party doing well, but would that play through to a general election victory, let's say, spring or autumn next year? I'm not persuaded yet.
OK. David Alroy-Bolt, good to see you.
Thank you both.
Thank you.
Right, OK, well, let's bring you up to date with what else is happening.
Yeah, and the Foreign Office has appealed for a de-escalation in tensions after 2 British-Israeli sisters were killed in the West Bank. Their mother is also in a critical condition after their car was targeted in a gun attack near an Israeli settlement. British citizens also reportedly amongst 6 people injured after a car drove into a group of people in Tel Aviv. 1 person was killed.
And more than 850 community and charity representatives from across the country have been invited to King Charles' coronation on May the 6th. 450 recipients of the British Empire Medal have been asked to attend the service at Westminster Abbey, whilst 400 young people will watch from the adjacent St Margaret's Church.
The United States is promising to train Taiwan's armed forces as China continues military exercises around the island that Beijing claims as its territory. The chairman of the Foreign Affairs Committee, Michael Morpurgo, also pledged to speed up the delivery of weapons, saying it's important that democracies stand together.
North Korea has conducted tests on an underwater nuclear attack drone, according to the country's state media. The test is a latest show of force against the US and South Korea. Photographs aired by broadcaster KRT show the drone exploding beneath the surface.
Now, time flies by because it is the 40th anniversary of Michael Morpurgo's best-selling book, War Horse. Of course, turned into that incredible show in the West End.
Oh, gosh, yeah.
Amazing.
How did they do that?
Anyway, the modern classic is best known for highlighting the horror and futility of war. And it's a staple now of classrooms right across the country.
Indeed. Last year, Mike Enemy met up with the author to create a special edition with brand new illustrations. And joining us now to tell us all about it is the man himself, director of books, illustrated.com, Mike Emily. Mike, good morning. Thank you very much for joining us on a Saturday morning. So, can you tell us a little bit about...
Thank you for having me on the show, and it's always a great show with you guys. So I'm very pleased to be invited here.
Oh, thank you.
Yes, we met with Michael Morpurgo and the illustrator who we've worked with for many years, a really talented chap called Christian Birmingham. And it's always a delight to meet Michael. He really loves this story, as do, I think, most people that have either read the book, seen the movie, or been to the play. The play was in the National Theatre, as you know, and with that amazing puppet. But I think the wonder of this book, as you say, Stephen, it's set against the backdrop, the terrible event of World War I, but it's shown through the eyes of a horse. The horse isn't politically charged. He doesn't care what happens with the Germans or with the British. He just wants to get back to his farm in Devon. And it's a very emotional story, but it's really powerful. And meeting Michael, we put it forward that, maybe it was time that this great story was dressed in very, very fine clothes, which is what we do. We're not a mass publisher. We take stories and we get them bound, we get them letterpressed, so they become literally jewels on people's libraries.
It's a lovely thing to do, to have something which is special in a book, I think. But what I find fascinating about illustrations, if I get my words out this morning, Mike, is the fact that illustrations add to a story, don't they? Because they help to change how we are perceiving the story and the characters. So how was that done sympathetically and in a way that Michael Morpurgo was happy with?
Well, with all of our books that we publish, whether we're publishing Life of Pi or any of them, all of the sketches have to go off to the author. He looks at them, he reviews them, he checks for any faults, whether there's something wrong with the horse. For example, when we first did the illustrations of Joey, we had him with a mane, as you see in the movie. But of course, in World War I, they used to hock the mane. You can see the horse there before he goes off to war. He's got a full mane there. But everything has to be checked. Everything has to be, it's really a nightmare for the illustrator, because just getting that uniform correct. And Christian told me a wonderful thing. He said, the British uniform was much easier to do because the uniform stayed the same most of the way through the war. But with the German uniform, they changed it quite regularly. So there's a lot of research that goes on to get these illustrations perfect.
Because we just showed some of the pictures there, and I'm astounded because it's the first time I've seen them. Because often with these with illustrations in books, they are often quite simple. These look like individual masterpieces, frankly.
They look like something you see in an art gallery.
Yeah.
They are. It's one of the things that our company, one of the sort of ethos of our company was that a lot of artwork nowadays is very digital that goes into books, and we wanted to keep the art of illustration really alive. Our company is all about keeping craftsmanship going. It takes Christian probably the good part of a year to create the full set of artwork for a book like this. It's a great deal of work, and he's fantastic. I mean, what an illustrator.
Wow.
So how many illustrations in that book for a year?
There are 17 illustrations plus a few few black and white illustrations that go in there. But typically we have about 20 illustrations in our books, and they're like full page paint, artwork. And I hope people will come along and see them, because we will be having Michael Morpurgo and Christian with us on the 28th of July at the Game Fair, which is going to be where people can meet him, see all of the artwork. We're even going to have a World War I cavalry display put on by the Sussex Yeomanry. So it'll be a really great day out.
Oh, it will be amazing. It will. Hopefully, we can send someone down to cover that, Mike.
Yes, absolutely.
I'll tell you what. It's a very limited edition, 580 copies. Why 580? Yes. It seems a very specific number.
Yes, it does. I actually don't know why we chose 580. Quite often with the numbering of books, you do choose something. Like when we did Midsummer Night's Dream with William Shakespeare, we did 450 copies because it was the 450th anniversary of William Shakespeare. But in this case, we did, I think, a certain number of our collector's editions, certain number of our deluxe editions, and we do 26 lettered editions where each book is only lettered A through to Z. But, these books don't... most books nowadays are quite quickly published. These books take a long time. Just printing the book, because we use letterpress, that means every page is made out of metal and is actually pressed into the paper rather than digitally fired through a printing press. That takes us 3 months to do. The binding of 500 books takes us another 3 months. So you can see these projects are, they take some planning.
Mike, given the amount of work you've detailed, I'm just going to ask, obviously, the one question.
Oh, here we go.
How much would it cost me if I wanted to buy one of the, not the super deluxe editions, but one of the normal ones?
They're £295, but each one is signed by the artist, signed by the illustrator, and you've got something that is very, very special. It's great to have a paperback book and to read it and watch the movie, but there's something wonderful about having something. It's something that we should be very proud of in this country. We do produce fine books, and this craftsmanship that when you buy a book like this, you're actually supporting British craftsmanship. And in fact, part of it is going off as a donation to Michael Morpurgo's charity, Farms for City Children, which is something he's very, very passionate about as well.
Oh, I'll tell you what, it's a beautiful thing to pass on to the children and things,
absolutely.
actually. Yeah. Mike Emney from booksillustrated.com, really good to see you this morning. Thank you very much indeed.
Yeah, I hope you do come and interview Michael on the 28th. That would be great.
We shall try to do that, Mike. Of course we will. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Happy Easter.
Happy Easter. Well, look, they're a lot of money. Not for everyone.
They are a lot of money, but for a special present,
very
special occasion, then...
those illustrations are absolutely stunning.
They are stunning. They're something like you'd see in the portrait gallery.
Yeah, they really are.
But, for 17 illustrations, a whole year to produce that, it's a lot of intensive work there, so... And it's supporting charities as well.
Yeah, there's something very appealing about a book like that. I think, bound on quality paper.
Yeah.
Anyway, look, don't go anywhere, because coming up still on the programme, we're going to be telling you which seaside town is the best one to visit in the UK.
I joined GB News because I was sick and tired of not hearing my views being represented, not just mine, but so many people that I knew and spoke to.
I just couldn't get my voice out there. I couldn't say anything, I couldn't do anything. Whatever the narrative was, I kind of had to follow it.
GB News is there to provide a voice for those who have been ignored by the establishment media. We think different things, we've got a different style.
GB News is here to be optimistic and positive about the future.
It's real kind of dynamic and flowing, with the audience very much at the heart of it, like a big family.
Here at GB News, we talk about the things that matter to you.
Hearing the voices from right across our towns and cities, especially our towns.
All sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion.
We're on a mission here to make a difference. And the GB News family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel. Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned.
I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
And right across the United Kingdom.
You can find us on Sky Channel 512.
Virgin Media Channel 604.
Freesat Channel 216.
Freeview Channel 236.
And YouView Channel 236.
You can also take us with you on DAB Plus Radio.
With the GB News app and at the website gbnews.uk.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Start the day with GB News.
We catch up on all the big stories you didn't hear the night before.
And take a look at what the world's talking about this morning. That's right, Monday to Thursdays from 6 o'clock. It's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Straight after breakfast, join us, Bev Turner and Andrew Pearce. We're going to take you through till noon.
We'll be tackling the big topics of the day, including the things that the other channels just won't talk about. If it's happening here. Wake up to mornings on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
New to GB News is the Saturday 5.
Join us every Saturday from 8 p.m. as we debate the week's stories, controversies and issues.
With us 4, plus a special guest.
It's 5 times the opinion, 5 times the debate, and 5 times the fun. The Saturday 5. Saturday nights from 8. Only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
You could wink at the end. I can't Britain's wink. Listening.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
.24. Good morning to you. This is Breakfast with Stephen and Dawn. Still to come for you today.
We'll bring you all the latest from the world of sport with Chris Scudder at 8:45, including a look at the latest Premier action with Manchester United kicking off this lunchtime.
And at 9:20, we're going to be meeting the heroic Pop. Nothing to do with these pictures.
It's on the beach there.
That's a picture of the beach, yes. But anyway, a Pop who rescued her owner from a fire. Mia is going to be in the studio with her owner, who's going to tell us all the details.
Right, get in touch with all the usual ways. Email gbviews@gbnews.uk or tweet us at gbnews.
Now, which is the best seaside town to go and visit in the UK? What about Broadhaven South in Pembrokeshire, says Talfin. Golden sands and great clean water for swimming. Sounds absolutely idyllic. But no, Talfin, no. You were wrong, because Scarborough has been crowned the best place in the UK.
We could have given it a drum roll, Stephen. Come on, it was just Scarborough.
We haven't got a drum roll. That needs something called grams that we haven't got.
Oh, okay.
So hard luck. Anyway, can't get the media professionals these days. Anyway, Scarborough has been crowned the best place to visit in the UK this Easter. By Airbnb.
Oh, yeah, and the resort town has been popular with holidaymakers from across the country ever since the discovery of spa waters in the 17th century.
Well, someone who can tell us what makes it so special is our Yorkshire and Humber reporter, Anna Riley. Morning, Anna. Who have you got with you?
Good morning. I'm here at the Alexander Hotel in Scarborough and I'm joined by the lovely Julie and Alex Testo who run the hotel. How do you feel about Scarborough being voted the best place to come this Easter?
Yeah, delighted, yeah, and quite rightly so. You know, Scarborough's Britain's premier resort, which means it was the first resort created by the Victorians. And it's because it's a natural resort. It has natural attractions. Its location on the coast with Whitby and Filey and Bridlington. We're right in the middle. Great for a short break or a long break.
It certainly is beautiful. Nice sunny day for it today as well. Yeah. And just tell us about the hotel. You're in your 23rd year of running it this year.
23 years, yes. We came here when Alex came out of the army. And this has been our family home, and we've had such amazing guests over those 23 years. Scarborough's fabulous for the beaches, Peasholm Park, and of course right across the road from us we have the Scarborough Open Air Theatre, which has brought fantastic acts. We've got Rag and Bone Man and all those type of acts. It's been amazing.
And there's an amazing history in Scarborough, isn't there? But also in this hotel, because back to the war. Yep. You had a king stay in one of these rooms.
Allegedly.
Yeah. When we first came to the hotel, we had a dear old lady came to stay with her daughter, and she took us up to the room and says, during the war, when I was here, the king visited. And it was just before D-Day, apparently, and visiting the troops at the barracks across the road.
Amazing history. And what will it do, Scarborough, you know, being voted to come here this Easter, what will it do for businesses like yourselves?
Well, we need it. You know, times are tough. All the utility costs and that for us and for the people, but we need a lift. Everybody needs to get away and enjoy life, and Scarborough can provide that, definitely, and we can at the Alexander.
Yeah. And you were saying book direct as well for hotels.
Book
that
direct will be the best value for the customers. It gives the businesses a lot more chance to actually survive. You know, because with agencies, there's lots of costs and stuff like that. So the customer gets the best value if they book direct, and you know, all the accommodation providers in Scarborough would really appreciate that.
And a lot of it's word of mouth, isn't it? You've got customers that are coming 23 years on still.
Yes, we have them in the hotel upstairs waiting for their breakfast.
Talking of that, we will let you get off things. I know you've got breakfast to make.
We have good traditional English breakfast.
Proper fry up.
Well cooked, Yeah.
He's a professional chef, so that helps.
That definitely helps. I might try and grab some myself as well.
You're very welcome.
There we go, Dawn and Stephen. So come to the Alexander if you want to stay in Scarborough. Fantastic 5-star hotel that they've got here, and also what a lovely resort that Scarborough is.
Yeah.
OK, well, you've sold it, Anna. As always, you've sold it. I'm on my way. Thanks very much indeed. I tell you what, whatever you think, wherever you like to go on holiday, wherever you like a little break, isn't it nice to try somewhere new or somewhere you've not been for a long time? I haven't been in Scarborough since I was about 6.
No, I think I've been once, obviously. It's sort of like it's quite a long way to go when you're based in London, but it does sound lovely.
Yeah, well, you need to get a bit of fresh air, a bit of sea air.
The thought, a nice walk along the beach, nice cooked breakfast, nice pint at the end of that water. Are you looking at pictures?
I'm looking at the hotel.
That room there.
Looking at the hotel.
I think we'll go for that room there, that one.
I'm not sharing. I'll tell you that. Spotless rooms. Oh, well, there you go.
It's a twin bed, it's fine.
That's what I always like. The spotless room's got to be spotless.
Yes, that looked lovely. You know...
The clean bathrooms and all that's all very important.
You know, I'm the sort of person that when I stay in a hotel, I clean the room before I leave it. What's that about?
Wow.
And I don't leave it in a mess either. It's not that I'm, you know, doing the rock and roll thing, but it's like, it's...
Yeah, I don't do that. No,
sorry.
I'm what you call quite normal. Anyway,
I wouldn't go that far.
If you're tempted by Scarborough, let us know. gbviews@gbnews.uk. I think it looks like a great place to go for a couple of days.
Yeah.
Why not? We've got lots more still to come for you, including a look at the papers. Last time today with Pete Price and Nikki Hodgson.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Deebs & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Jacob Rees-Mogg. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, no, stop arguing. I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment. I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different.
Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, the Member of Parliament for North East Somerset and a former government minister. For years, I've walked the corridors of power in both Westminster and the City of London. I campaigned in the largest democratic vote in our island's story. I know this country has so much to be proud of. We need to have the arguments, the discussions on how we make it better. The wisdom of the nation is in its people. Vox Populi, Vox Dei. That's why I'm joining the People's Channel. Join me Monday to Thursday at 8 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News has its own late-night paper preview show, Headliners, where comedians take you through the next day's top news stories. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper, we've got it covered for you. Headliners, every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, on Sunday mornings from 9:30, taking the politicians to task and breaking out of SW1 to see how their decisions are affecting you across the UK. Bursting the Westminster bubble every Sunday morning, only on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain's watching.
You've probably seen politicians interviewed 1,000 times, but we do it differently. We find out who they really are, we don't shout, we chat, and hopefully we bring a bit of light, not just heat. Did you know Kate Moss?
Apparently.
Do you have a pair of jeans or a pair of jeans?
No, of course I don't. What would I do with them?
My friends are like, oh my God, what's she doing now?
Join me every Sunday at 6 for Gloria Meets, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It is very nearly 8:35. Good morning to you watching and listening to Breakfast with Stephen and Dawn.
Time to go through the papers now. I know you can't wait, can you? And joining us this morning is author Nikki Hodgson alongside legendary... Why can't Nikki be legendary as well?
I haven't heard it yet. Stephen said that to me a while ago. We can't quite call you a legend yet. I'm afraid.
Legend,
remember that.
You will be there.
Near legend and proper legend, Pete Price. Good morning to you both.
Isn't it a weird word, though, legend? It's one that's used too much now. I think it's a special word.
No, not in your case.
You're the real deal, though.
I'm not that vain. Yes, I am.
No, you are. Well, you are very, very well known, especially, I mean, in the Northwest, everyone knows Pete Price.
Yeah.
Well,
Peter Kay talks about me in his concert.
Does he?
Yeah, he does a 5-minute routine in his concert at the O2 as well. I thought it was just Liverpool. He used to listen to my late-night phone-in and ring in with false names and everything, and he talks about me, and he said, you know, one of the greatest calls he ever did was a boy of 16 came on and said, Peter, I'm gay, and I'm really, really upset, and, you know, I don't know how to tell my mother, and I apparently said, you have. Next caller.
You rotten devil. Let's have a look at the Express, Pete.
Oh, I love this.
Have we lost Christian values?
Yes. Is this still a Christian country? Our practising Hindu Prime Minister confined his well wishes for Easter to and finally. And it goes on. It's a really interesting because everyone will be going, is this a Christian country anymore? Christianity has made this country what it is. The Church of England, for all its faults, is never going to get locked into a religious arms race with rival faiths or strive for total social domination. No. It's a hell of a read, and it's a great time to write it because are we still a Christian country?
But it's interesting though because a lot of churches and a lot of vicars now have interfaith groups. Mm. So they don't, not an arms race, but you try and work together with different faiths, and that's a.
In some areas, a lot of people will be listening and not agree with you there, and say some areas are taking over with different religions and forcing their religions on this Christian country. Ooh, it's a minefield. It really is.
It is a minefield, but I don't have an issue with the PM. I didn't have to be honest. I didn't think he was practising. But if he is, I think the fact he's said something about Easter but kept it small is fine. If it's not his faith, then that's...
On a lighter note, I've got to tell you, with Good Friday yesterday, I am not a Christian. I've lost my faith, and I've written about it in my column this week. I've lost my faith, but I didn't eat meat yesterday out of respect for my mum. I had fish. And so many people did it. The woman in the restaurant said to me, everybody wants fish today.
Yeah.
And it's a psychological thing. And my mum's not with me. It's a respect. See, Mum, I had fish because she'd have belted me.
Aye.
Oh.
Quite right, too. Clip round the ear.
Yep.
Actually, we had fish last night as well, thinking about it.
Yeah.
It's just a psychological thing.
Yeah.
But you know what? I think...
I had pizza, but then I don't eat fish.
But that's probably why you had pizza.
Yeah.
I hope they had no bits of meat on it.
I don't have a problem with this, with what Rishi Sunak has said, because I think the point of surely all religion preaches tolerance and love and understanding. So I think it's a good thing. And I think no matter what religion you are this morning, or no religion at all...
There will be people yelling at the screen saying, well, the Muslim faith doesn't preach tolerance. Actually, it does. Yeah. It's just the fact it's the extremists who've twisted that. Careful with that.
I've not long been back from Israel, and everybody I met there wanted to force their faith into me, and they had their own God, and there was many gods there.
Yeah.
OK, well, let's move on to what some would say is a new religion. Nikki, TikTok. Please,
this is actually really depressing, but let's deal with it because it's very serious. So it's to do with the ads for weapons that teenagers are viewing on TikTok at the minute, specifically for machetes.
Ads for weapons?
Ads for weapons that are from British shops, online stores, and they are advertising these knives to under 18s, selling them for as little as £30. And TikTok, as ever, says it can't police the content in time, or claims to police the content, but isn't doing, and then after the fact takes the content off. What I don't understand about these very sophisticated social media giants is why are the algorithms not clever enough to detect the shape of a machete and just get rid of the video without
because it's illegal to sell. You can't just sell weapons like that in the UK.
Well, you can't just sell them, but there's another
Even
piece.
Online.
There's another story underneath this talking about the online sales of knives in the UK is really behind the rise in murders, knife murders. And it begs the question, why do we sell machetes to people anyway? Because I've always wondered, what's the use for one? What's the legitimate use for one that's not violent?
I guess if you're working in some industries, like the gardening industry or something like that.
It's few and far between, isn't it, the examples of which...
That's in my garden?
Not in this country,
To me, it just seems like you should have to justify the use of the weapon before you buy it, and wouldn't that solve the problem?
Yeah, well, I think that's a fair point.
It is, because with kitchen knives, I mean, we all use knives in our kitchens.
Yeah.
You can't ban the sale of knives full stop, can you?
No, but these...
But it's a sliding scale of how much damage you create with certain knives, isn't it? And this is kind of just saying that the legislation we have in Britain is very old, in England and Wales, sorry, it's very old. and we need to really update this because people are losing their lives.
Yeah.
I was in the catering industry before I went in show business, and I used to carry a set of knives around, which were my knives. The idea of ever sticking a knife in somebody, I would never understand in a trillion years. I carry them around because it was my job.
Yeah.
It's appalling that kids carry knives these days, and they'll tell you it's for protection. I'm sorry.
No.
Where's the parents? Where's the parents?
Yeah, well, you're right, Pete. Pete, let's have a look at the Mail. Looking at pensioners, 400,000 facing tax for the first time.
This was the story you mentioned before in the first half. So hundreds of thousands of pensioners will be hit by the income tax bills for the first time ever after retirement, because the pensions are going up 10.1% from Monday. And it's an estimated 400,000 people will be affected by this. For those who had topped up their additional state pension to boost their retirement, they're going to have the problems and be taxed themselves. And it's horrendous. So they're thinking they're getting a rise, and so many people are going to lose that rise because they're going to have to pay tax. I pay tax because I slightly work and I've got something else and whatever, and I think I get 3 and 6 from my pension in old money.
Yeah. I struggle to... I mean, I know there are reasons for it. You can't just scrap tax on pensions because we can't afford to, but there is something about when you've saved for a pension, whether it's a state pension or a private pension, you've saved with it, and then you get taxed on it.
It's disgraceful.
Yeah.
Because you save. They're telling us to save money to live in old age because, let's face it, there's a crisis for the youngsters of today. There is going to be no pension pot out there.
No, there isn't.
It's a frightening situation. Nikki, shall we move on to, again, there's a religious link to this one, to the Express. Archbishop of Canterbury reveals he's on antidepressant medication.
I think this is really touching, actually, this story. Because,
what's he on, does he say?
He doesn't say which specific kind of antidepressant, but he makes the point, Justin Welby, that actually, he says, the antidepressants work very well for me. They restore me to ER status from something much worse. So he's quite self-deprecating, and he just sort of makes the point that he just can't manage without them. I think it's interesting because you often think if someone's of faith, somebody in this position, they've got everything sorted, haven't they? They don't need anything more than God. And he's just being very kind of honest and saying, well, everybody can struggle. It doesn't matter how...
Yeah. And it doesn't... I mean, also...
How faithful they are.
There's a lot of people... I mean, I take an antidepressant, but it's not because I'm depressed or struggling. It's because I've got a lack of serotonin.
Yeah.
Which gives you a low mood. I had it since I was a teenager. And it's... so it's not that my life is awful.
No, of
clearly
course not.
But
I take one for anxiety, the same thing.
So
I'm
it's
very anxious.
I just need to lift my serotonin levels.
Yeah.
And it may well be the same for him. And I just think so many people take them, and yet there's still a taboo around
Well,
it.
and that's what he's doing. He's trying to break the stigma. So, I mean, all the more to him. I think it's really good that he's come out and said this.
Talking about it is so important. There's an awful lot of people who are antidepressants, and more people are being described them for all sorts of reasons. There's nothing wrong with having a mental health issue.
No, well, we all have mental health, whether it's good or bad.
Yes, exactly.
I look very nervously at Pete.
I just always remember 1,000 years ago when I told my doctor I was gay, he prescribed me Valium to stop me being gay. I'd just leave it at that one.
Didn't work, did it?
The Valium, I put them down the toilet and definitely didn't work.
No.
I've got to do this story.
Go on then.
Got to do this story. This is interactive GB News. Interactive. Noddy Holder's wife, Susan, has rung me up and said, you've got to do this story.
Right. Morning, Susan.
Right.
Morning,
So you ready?
Susan.
Riot police were called to the Manchester Palace in Manchester. I was at the Liverpool Empire when I saw The Bodyguard and The Bodyguard last night, and they were out singing the act. I mean, it is ridiculous. The audience, because they were drunk. Hen parties. Now, I'll tell you now, in theatres, they have policies now. If you've got plastic glasses, you know it's going to be an interactive show, as in hen parties, stag parties, and not a proper theatre audience. If you get glasses, you know you've got a fighting chance to see a proper show. It really annoys me. I was there, the woman next to me singing, I've come to see her on stage, not you, you stupid. And I really told her. But there was a mini riot there in Manchester, because they were all getting up singing, they were legless, and they had to stop the show towards the end. It's all wrong. Theatre is all wrong. Theatre is a beautiful experience, an expensive these days.
And expensive. You want to go and hear the performances, don't you?
Yeah, not this. I could sing better than Air anyway. God, I'm dying to swear. Sorry.
Don't swear.
Oh, wouldn't
not.
It's Easter. Couldn't swear. My mother would slap me.
She would. She would. I wonder what Nod makes of that then.
Well, at least he can
Excuse me, Nod. Don't talk to me about that. Nod. And I was working with them years and years ago, in the first act, Susie Quattro, and they said, get them sat down, get them sat down. So we got them sat down, got them sat down. Noddy comes on and goes, everyone up! Thanks, Nod.
Yeah.
Because if you're going to the theatre this weekend and you want to sing song, don't, OK?
Well, you know what they say at the Tina Turner one? Please sing at the end.
Is that what they say?
They say, please do not sing now, sing at the end.
Yeah.
I mean, you should see me with Les Mis. I can march at the same time as them. All right.
Let's have a look. Now, this one I love, Nikki. If you are feeling a bit down, have a pie.
A bit of good sense science, that's what I call it. So basically saying that pies make you happier. And it's the combination, particularly meat pies, it's a combination of the meat and the pastry. You get tryptophan released, which creates serotonin in your body, as we were talking about. This might be what you need, Stephen. And, pies are great for you. And I do find it quite funny. The guy who's also saying this is called Jeff Hodgson. And I was wondering maybe he's a long-lost relative of mine, because I do love a pie.
Oh, yeah?
Always cheers me up.
He doesn't sell pies by any chance, does he, this Jeff Hodgson?
Yes, he's kind of a spokesperson for Freyborn Bentos.
Right.
I mean, I can't lie about that.
Who'd have thought?
I'm surprised you've done that story, because I'm not going to start an argument about North-South divide. Yeah. Northerns know about pies.
Exactly.
They don't. These two know nothing about
I'm from
pies.
Yorkshire. What are you talking about?
Oh, yeah, she's Yorkshire. She's all right.
I beg your pardon, no Yorkshire. Sorry, Air in the middle.
I'm the only southern softie on this one, but I tell you what, mate, you want to try jellied eels.
Oh, no, thank you.
No.
Reminds me we went to buy some new crockery, you know, and we found some nice stuff that we like the look of. But it was those very, very flat plates.
Oh, yes, yeah.
And we both looked at each other and exactly the same point said, the gravy had run off.
Do you know what you just said there? Why do they put puddings not in a bowl? Why do they put a pudding on the plate?
What are you meant to do with
You
the
have to use your finger to lick the custard up.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
I know, we need to teach them a thing.
It's all wrong. Happy Easter, by the way,
Happy
everyone.
Easter. Enjoy that food, no matter how you're eating it or what you're eating it off, because I'm going to bring you up to date on everything else that's happening.
Go on, then.
Go on, then. Right, the Foreign Office. He's got the doofer. The Foreign Office has appealed for a de-escalation in tensions after 2 British-Israeli sisters were killed in the West Bank. Their mother is also in critical condition after their car was targeted in a gun attack near Israeli settlement. British citizens are reportedly among 6 people injured after a car drove into a group of people in Tel Aviv, leaving 1 person dead.
More than 850 community and charity representatives from across the country have been invited to the Coronation on May the 6th. 450 recipients of the British Empire Medal will attend the service at Westminster Abbey. 400 young people will watch from St Margaret's Church, which is just...
That's lovely. The United States is promising to train Taiwan's armed forces as China continues military exercises around the island. Beijing claims is its territory. The chairman of the Foreign Affairs Committee, Michael Morpurgo, also pledged to speed up the delivery of weapons, saying it's important democracies stand together.
Now, time for your weekend sport. This morning, we've got a very special treat for you because Chris Scudder is back. Morning, Scods.
Stephen, very nice to see you. Dawn, good morning to you. It's lovely outside, by the way. It's gorgeous. It's an Easter Saturday, clear sunshine, lovely.
That's nice to know, because we're in the basement here, so you can't see a blooming thing, to be honest. What have we got? Burnley.
Yeah, a certain Lancashire town. Is it Milltown, Burnley? Or, I think it used to be. Yeah. I mean, they're celebrating today because they have been promoted to the Premier League. The first team in the English Football League to get promoted. I'll take you back to Good Friday last year. Burnley were in the Premier League, and they sacked their manager, Sean Dyche, who's now at Everton, and they got relegated. And people thought that's probably going to be the end of Burnley for a few years. But they went down and they hired Vincent Kompany. I don't know if Vincent, he used to play for Manchester City.
Yeah, absolutely. Very good player.
Great player. And obviously learned a lot from the great Pep Guardiola, who he was captain for 3 years. He was coaching in Belgium with Anderlecht, and they picked him up last summer. People thinking, OK, it'll probably take a few years for them to get back. But they've shot through the Championship this year. They've won 25 games, and they've won the league. Well, they haven't won the league yet, but they've been promoted with 7 games to spare. So extraordinary, really. Last night they beat Middlesbrough 2-1, and that means they can't be caught now. So, yeah, great times for that. It's not a footballing backwater because it's a very traditional club, but they're back in the Premier League with a great manager.
One of the older clubs, isn't it?
Burnley's been around a long time. Yeah, Blackburn down the road as well. You know, the Ribble Valley. It's an old school footballing hotbed. You know, but they're back, Burnley, and they've got American owners now as well. So a bit of money to spend maybe next year when they get the money from the Premier League. Yeah. So well done to them. 19 games unbeaten. Extraordinary stuff, really. And future's looking bright for Burnley, I think.
Yes.
Good. Oh, that's nice to know.
What about Chelsea? How's the future looking bright for Chelsea with Frank Lampard's first game coming
right
up?
now, if you had started the season and said Chelsea Easter weekend would be in the bottom half of the Premier League, you'd be thinking, that's not going to be happening. But I mean, the club is a mess. You know, they've got the American Todd Bowley's come in. And it's almost like the Abramovich days again, because, Graham Potter came in. Talk about Vincent Kompany there. Graham Potter with a very bright future. But he came in, and the pressure at that club is it's toxic, really. I mean, the poor bloke. He was sacked recently, and now Chelsea find themselves with Frank Lampard back. 2 years ago, Frank was there. When he came back, the great messiah, the great player, it doesn't always follow that players become good coaches. No. But, he's a big name and very respected. But he didn't last very long. I think it was just under a year. Went to Everton, didn't do great things there, kept them up, but then struggled again this year. And now he finds himself back simply because Chelsea don't really know where to go at the moment. So, they've got a Champions League semi-final next week against Real Madrid. The league now they just want to get to the end of the season.
It's a caretaker manager, just so keep them up, basically, is the job.
Well, yeah, I mean, they're not going to go down, but I mean, I've got a theory that Frank is. The trouble is with Chelsea, they've just thrown the checkbook and signed all these players, and they're kind of lost, really. I felt sorry for Graham Potter because what do you do? I mean, here's a load of players who you don't really know. Yeah. Now make it work, and he couldn't really. So, and Frank will come in, and they'll kind of respect him, I think. Yeah. And maybe it just might be. It's no lose for Frank. It's no lose for the club till the end of the season.
Oh, well. We shall watch with interest.
They're playing Wolves today.
Oh, Wolves, right. You're going to be back later on in the next hour.
Yeah, we're going to talk about the golf. We haven't got time.
No, we haven't got time.
Oh, okay.
We'll do it next hour. Chris, thanks very much indeed. Don't go anywhere. All your top stories coming up very, very shortly. But first, let's have a check on your weather forecast.
Hello, good morning. The fine weather is going to continue for many as we go through today with some dry, sunny and warm weather for most of us, but things will turn more unsettled as we head towards the end of the long weekend. The reason for the settled conditions is this area of high pressure dominating the picture across the UK currently, but weather fronts waiting out in the Atlantic will reach us as we go through Sunday and later into Monday. Take a look at the picture first thing, and there is some mist and fog across southern parts to watch out for this morning. Also some cloud and outbreaks of rain across eastern northeastern parts of the UK. Elsewhere, it's a largely dry and sunny picture. The cloud in the northeast should break up a little bit, so increasing amounts of sunshine as we head into the afternoon. And in that sunshine, feeling pleasantly warm. Temperatures may be a touch higher than yesterday with highs of around 16 or 17 Celsius. Across parts of Northern Ireland, it is going to be a bit cloudier, and that cloud increasing as we go through the day, with winds strengthening here too because of this front trying to push in from the west. We will then see a few outbreaks of rain here later on, and some outbreaks of rain for western Scotland overnight too. Otherwise, though, it's looking like a largely dry night, perhaps a bit cloudier than some recent nights. As a result, it may not be quite as cold, though there's the potential for a touch of frost in the most prone spots where we get any clear skies. So Sunday then, getting off to a dry start for most of us. There will be some outbreaks of rain through the morning across parts of Scotland, but they're going to clear their way northwards. Otherwise, and whilst it will be a little bit cloudier than recently, I'm expecting some decent sunshine, particularly across England and Wales, as we head through the middle part of the day. Temperatures with that sunshine will again be on the warm side, so highs of around 17 or 18 Celsius. But notice this wet weather, though, arriving from the west. That's then going to sweep its way eastwards as we go through Sunday night into Monday, bringing a real change to something more unsettled through the rest of the week. There's the potential for something stormy to arrive later Tuesday into Wednesday, with temperatures taking a bit of a dip too.
New to GB News is the Saturday 5.
Join us every Saturday from 8 p.m. as we debate the week's stories.
Right, folks, that was a spicy one, wasn't it? With us four, plus a special guest.
Sometimes she has to stick her foot in it. Sometimes she has to say things as they are.
Sometimes I think we should keep the refugees and send the pensioners to Rwanda. Then we'd be in a much better state.
Well, Benjamin, that is...
The Saturday 5. Saturday nights from 8. Only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
First and foremost, I am a GB News fan, and I was before I was working here. Just love the fact that we're asking the questions that a lot of establishment media won't ask.
With a bit of a twist, we not only want to inform you, but we want to keep you entertained.
It's worth the drive because you get in and the team's all ready and waiting, they're itching to go, and it's a proper little family.
GB News is the People's Channel.
It's the audience that makes the programme sing.
We're giving our viewers and our listeners a voice. I see the thousands of your letters, tweets, emails, you name it, coming in.
Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it?
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent you.
It's time for something different. It's time for GB News. I'm very patriotic. I believe in Britain. Our best days lie ahead.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Join us here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my two comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Here on GB News Live, we'll be keeping you in the picture, finding out what's happening across the country and finding out why it matters to you. We'll have the facts fast with our team of reporters and specialist correspondents. Wherever it's happening, we'll be there from 12 noon on TV, radio and online. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. Join me on GB News on a Sunday morning for topical discussion, debate, arts and culture, and sometimes even ethical dilemmas.
I don't always agree with you, Michael.
Michael Portillo, Sundays on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Co.
You're an inspiration to us all.
Clip that bit up.
Well, you are.
That's my ringtone. My political ambitions those days are gone, I can tell you. She's only teasing. Go on. He's probably going to want to lay down now. I'll give him 2 minutes to have one. Let's respectfully disagree. That's what we like on Jubes and Co. Come and join us. GB News, the People's Channel.
Michelle Dewberry, weekday evenings at 6 o'clock.
I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m.
What's the scoop?
I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians.
That's right.
As we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight.
We're going to get into trouble.
If it's a big story, we'll be covering it.
Spill some tea on him.
There we go.
But we'll also have some fun.
I wouldn't stick up a bank.
My father didn't love me.
So anyway.
Headliners every night from 11 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We've got a brand new lineup every Saturday night on GB News.
From 6 p.m, I'll give you my unique take on the world today.
Then at 7, it's me, Calvin Robinson, with my Common Sense Crusade.
New to GB News is the Saturday 5.
5 times the opinion. Join us every Saturday from 8 p.m. as we debate the week's stories.
With us four, plus a special guest.
And at 9, of course, it's Mark Dolan Tonight. Brand new Saturday nights on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Labour double down on their controversial adverts.
Good morning. It's 9 o'clock on Saturday, the 8th of April. This is Breakfast on GB News with Stephen and Dawn, and here are your top stories this morning.
The Labour Party has posted another attack ad criticising the Prime Minister, following on from yesterday's row, which saw a wave of criticism from right across the political spectrum.
Meanwhile, tributes have been flooding in for S Club 7 star Paul Cattermole, who has died unexpectedly at the age of 46. The band's manager, Simon Fuller, called him a beacon of light. Stephanie Taki will be joining us for the latest news.
And more than 850 community and charity representatives from across the UK have been invited to the King's Coronation. We're going to speak to a Marine constable from Essex Police who's been invited after she rowed across the Atlantic.
Wow. And we all love our pets, and everyone is a hero to us. We'll be meeting one dog who has been nominated for a very special doggy award. You really won't want to miss Mia and her owner coming up very shortly.
And we'd love to hear from you, of course, wherever you are and whatever you're up to. Drop us a line. gbviews@gbnews.uk. Now, Labour has doubled down on its attacks on the government with the release of another controversial poster on Twitter.
Gosh. Yesterday, they claimed on Twitter the Prime Minister did not think that child abusers should be sent to jail.
Well, following the publication of that, we asked the Shadow Culture Secretary, Lucy Powell, if Keir Starmer should apologise.
No, I don't think he should apologise. These are election graphics. These are political graphics, which, as I say, are not something that I designed or wrote. Well, look, they're not my words. They're not words I've chosen. But what I am saying to you, as somebody who's been asked to talk about the issues that we are highlighting today, regards to these huge figures that we are unveiling, is that these serious offenders, some of them are not getting the custodial sentences that they should be.
I actually feel a little bit sorry for Lucy Powell yesterday. She wasn't happy.
She wasn't, and I did feel so. She was the one forced out to try and defend basically the indefensible.
That's what it felt like.
I sort of got the idea that she wanted to go, look, it was a really rubbish idea, but I can't say that. And I'd have respected an awful lot more if she had done.
Well, yes, it's extraordinary. I mean, in the political world, it's extraordinary in this country. So perhaps Labour would have withdrawn it and perhaps apologised or just tried to ignore it. But no, they've done it again. This time, the advert says, do you think an adult convicted of possessing a gun with intent to harm should go to prison? Rishi Sunak doesn't.
Yes, he does. That's why there's a 5-year sentence for it. In any case, let's see what writer and broadcaster David Bolt even makes of this. David, thank you for joining us on this Easter Saturday. What are Labour doing?
I think they've had a massive misstep here, and I quite agree with you that Ms Powell looked terribly uncomfortable. It was like she was being forced to walk the plank, the poor thing. And as you say, to defend the indefensible. The I newspaper this morning, a pretty left-leaning paper, is saying that this is an appalling descent into American-style political partisanship. I think, well, we can all agree it's crass. I think we'll probably all agree as well that it's going to be ineffective, that it won't persuade swing voters that Labour's going to be tougher on crime than the Tories. It will just make them think that the Labour Party is floundering around for something to say. And I really don't understand why Labour go down this path when it was Sir Keir Starmer, as Director of Public Prosecutions, who set the sentencing guidelines for the sexual offences that have been singled out, and it was the Labour Party who set the sentencing guidelines for gun crime nearly 25 years ago. They've shot themselves in the foot, to use a slightly unfortunate metaphor.
Yeah. Yes, I mean, it does seem very odd that they've done that, and it's not to... I mean, the point with all this, and we were trying to make it with Lucy Powell yesterday, was that it's not to criticise the criticism of what's gone wrong, in a sense. I think everyone would agree there are legitimate questions to be asked about what is happening with sentencing, why things don't seem to be as tough as perhaps they should be. Is that argument just sort of lost in the mist as we talk about the campaigning?
I think that's the problem, isn't it? That you hold any serious argument below the waterline the moment that you go down the path of these serious ad hominem personal attacks, because it doesn't actually talk about the issue. It just makes it seem like the Labour Party is afraid of Rishi Sunak. This is why they're saying that a man elected in 2015 is responsible for sentencing from 2010. It's illogical. And it makes the Labour Party, I think, seem rather pathetic. Just as Emily Thornberry's leaping to the defence of this campaign this morning makes the Labour Party seem rather pathetic. It makes them seem as though they don't have serious points to bring up with the Conservatives, that they can only go after the Prime Minister as a personal beacon of conservatism.
Yeah, I would have actually been very impressed if actually they'd have just put something out there listing the serious points of what they are going to do, backed up by the facts and the finances of how they're going to do it.
Quite so. And I think there are, as Stephen said, there are serious points to raise about the severity of questioning, about the fact that, for instance, there is no mandatory prison sentence for people convicted of sexual assault on children. That should, in my opinion, and I'm sure the opinion of many people, including, I'm sure, many Conservative members of Parliament, be the case. And if the Labour Party were to lead on that, I think they would have a great deal of sympathy in the nation.
All right, clarify this for me, because this is where I think we do get a bit lost in the argument a little bit. Because this is all being blamed on the Prime Minister.
Yes.
But on politicians, on the Conservative government. Why is it not the fault of the judiciary? Why is it not the fault of the police? Why is it that politicians can supposedly, with some sense of certainty, say this is a political issue?
Well, because it is a political issue, because the Parliament is the fons et origo, the foundation of all legislation. The judiciary can only give sentences that are provided by legislation.
Yes, but if that's done, but if there are sentencing guidelines which are set out, amongst which Keir Starmer, before he was a member of Parliament, was part of setting those guidelines. Again, why is this a parliamentary issue?
Well, the sentencing guidelines, I think, are a mixture of the political and the legal. There has to be some accommodation between the judges who are going to be responsible for giving out those sentences, between what they think would be applicable and is appropriate, and between the political impetus towards satisfying the people in the country who want to see severe penalties. I think there is always, when there's opinion polling on this sort of thing, there is always an appetite for more serious, for harsher sentences among the public than there is among the judiciary. Now, that's probably a natural point of disjunct and would probably occur in any Western nation if you were to poll it. However, I think it must be taken into account what people feel about these things. It's not a purely legal issue. These are extremely serious crimes and extremely emotive issues. And if the public of this country, which votes for politicians, which therefore, in a secondary sense, appoints judges, feels that the sentences are inappropriate or that they're not severe enough, I think politicians have to step up and look at this again and say, is 14 years sufficient? Well, there may be a case that I would like to hear made that it is. There may be a case that it isn't. But the point is that these discussions are not being had because of the silliness of this campaign from Labour, and it makes it less likely that they will be had because the Conservatives can simply turn around and say, well, you clearly don't care about the reality of the issue. You're just going after the Prime Minister. You're on the serious opposition.
Yeah, David, you've got a lot of experience in politics, obviously, now. If you were advising Keir Starmer on how to handle what's frankly become a mess and it is getting worse on a daily basis, it's all people are talking about now as far as politics is concerned, what advice would you give to Keir Starmer about what to do with this situation now?
I think, well, the first thing he should do is retract the ad campaigns and apologise for not treating these issues with the severity and the earnestness they deserve. And then if he were going to be really clever, he would suggest that there be an all-party investigation into sentencing to canvass opinions across every party that sits in Westminster and decide how they move forward with setting sentencing guidelines, whether the current institutions work, whether they fit for purpose, and how far the judiciary should be involved in, as it were, marking its own homework.
I tell you what, they need to look at their campaigning, though, don't they, and whoever's behind this. And actually, not to be partisan about this, the government needs to look at, and all the political parties need to look at their campaigning, because it's no good if Labour does this and they're criticised, and then the Tories go and do it next week.
Well, there's always been an aspect of the personal in the political. Everybody remembers probably from 2001, the election campaign of William Hague with Mrs Thatcher's hair.
Yeah.
And, you know, the 1997 election campaign you had, which failed, of course, with the Tories, Tony Blair with burning red eyes. There's always been that aspect that since the Second World War, that the leader of the party can be fair game for attack. And I suppose you could say that this is just Labour carrying on in that tradition. However, I think that bearing in mind the political movements over the past 7 years, since 2016 with Brexit, and particularly with President Trump, I think we have to be slightly careful about this sort of thing. I don't think it's particularly good for politics at a time when politics is held in disdain by a great many people, when in fact it's terrifically important to their lives. And I don't think it draws in people who probably feel very strongly about issues but are repelled by the politics of it.
Yes, it sort of seems like they're playing a game.
Yes, exactly, as though it's just a bit of knockabout tit for tat, and actually it doesn't have any effect on the lives of people in the country.
I think this is such the important point here, is that they're showing... These are our lives we're talking about here. We're the ones that are suffering from crime and the sex assault one before. And it's like they're almost treating... This isn't even partisan. Politicians of all sides are treating us with a little bit of contempt.
I think that's a legitimate response to this sort of thing, a legitimate response to the way that politics has been handled for, I should say, pretty much the past 25 years. Soundbite politics leads to disdain from those who are, in fact, the electors, those who actually put these people in the positions of power over us by democratic consent. And I think it's about time we demanded more of those we sent to represent us.
OK, David Allroy-Bolt, good to see you. Thank you very much.
Thank you
indeed.
both.
You're going to have a view on that, I'm sure.
Yes.
Let us know what it is. GBviews at gbnews.uk. And as I say, I think it's important to reiterate, because it's not our position to be partisan on this breakfast show. And so we're not trying to do that, but there are legitimate questions to be asked. About the crime figures, but that almost seems a separate issue now.
Yes.
But about how the campaigning is going and what you do, and trying to imply that a political leader thinks something which they clearly don't. It just doesn't sit right, does it?
Yeah, at best it's not accurate. At worst, it's a downright lie.
I think it's... Duncan, hi Duncan, says Labour's campaign memes are underhand and should be withdrawn. But, says Duncan, the Tories have released loads of these kind of campaign ads over the last decade. So are they all as bad as each other?
Well, this is the thing, and, you know, what people keep forgetting, right? It's like, you know, we talk about them like they're a different species to us. They're not. They're people like us. And more importantly, Stephen, we pay their wages. They work for us. And I think treating us with this level of contempt, and like we're stupid. That's what really...
You're just going to fall for it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, as you say, what annoys me is there are serious questions to be asked and answered here, and this actually doesn't help. You know, we need to look at these things. Why are people not getting custodial terms when they should be? You know, that's a serious... It's a very serious thing. Anyway, let us know what you think. GBviews at gbnews.uk. Let's turn our attention now to... I mean, it was a huge story yesterday when the news broke, because it's a tragedy when anybody dies, but when it's someone who's been held in public affection and they die at what is now considered to be a very tender age of 46, it's a shock. And we're talking about Paul Cattermole, of course, from S Club 7. Stephanie Tetchy is here. Morning, Steph.
Morning.
And this is just one of those... I mean, if you're of a certain age, maybe you don't know who Paul was. But for everybody else, it was a real... When it flashed up on the phone, it's a real double take, isn't it?
It is, and it's quite shocking. And you're right, he was held in public affection for those people who did know him, and for the memories that people have of growing up with S Club 7, whether it's to songs or whether it's the TV series LA 7, Miami 7. Like, those were a big part of people's youth as they're growing up. And S Club 7, as cheesy as people might find their music, they actually feel good music. And, you know, when you think of the 90s, it was that golden era of bands, you know, groups and pop music. And S Club 7 was very much at the forefront of that. And those 7 members, even though as they came as a group, as individuals, people knew and loved them. And Paul was a part of that group. And he was a part of that story. And I think the big thing now is what is going to be the story for S Club 7 going forward, because the timing of his death is really weird, because obviously they had just come back together to reunite, to go and tour this October to celebrate their 25th year anniversary. They were put together by Simon Fuller. He was a mastermind. So he's a mastermind of groups. So how they're going to be able to carry on this tour is yet to be known, but I think they will continue as a tribute to him.
I really hope they do, because I mean, sort of like going back to an older generation, you know, when the Rolling Stones are lost. What's his name? My mind's gone blank. The drummer recently.
Charlie Watts.
Charlie Watts recently. Sorry about that. And everyone was going, oh, they shouldn't tour, no, they should call it a day. But I think they wanted to pay tribute to Charlie. And so for S Club to do that now would be, I think, what the fans would want.
Yeah, it's what they do. It's what these bands do best, is produce music, it's get on stage, it's entertain people. And, you know, through sad times, entertainment actually provides that kind of relief from grief. And obviously they put the statement out and they said, you know, we were so lucky to have had him in our lives and are all thankful for the amazing memories we have. And in order to keep that memory alive, you got to perform and you got to keep the band together.
I mean, the tragedy with, I mean, it actually not just with Paul in S Club, but with a number of, including his ex, Hannah, is that they have actually fallen on pretty tough times, because it's not as, it seems like a very glamorous life when they do, but even when they're at the top, he was saying they weren't actually making that much money, or
and you have to
he's really struggled.
You have to split it 7 ways, and you know, I know there's that saying in showbiz, 15 minutes of fame, but what happens after those 15 minutes? And there was true stories like Paul where you can face bankruptcy, you can go through emotional challenges, and no one sees that. And it's really bad sometimes in the media, because it's not until somebody dies where people want to talk about that and, oh, he was great and he was so-and-so, but these people are human beings as well.
Of course.
And, you know, when you're not in the limelight, you can face these problems. But
he was doing tarot card reading and things just to make a bit of money,
Yeah, he was on YouTube. He had a YouTube channel and he was giving out readings in exchange for a donation. And people remember in the latter years of his, you know, TV appearances, whether it's Loose Women or First States Hotels, which were not as, you know, vibey and poppy as he was in S Club 7, but that's the reality of it sometimes. But
I tell you what, that really struck me in the when he was looking for love. Because I mean, he was a sort of real catch back in the day, but he, you know, he got very upset, didn't he, when he got rejected by someone? And
that's the signs of someone who's quite fragile and emotional. And I know over the next few weeks there'll be a lot more that will come about his passing. But hopefully his music will live on, and you know, through his members of the band, that they'll be able to talk about the good times.
But that's what you want, is to remember the good times. And we were losing so many people recently.
We are.
It feels like every morning you wake up and you switch GBNews on, and it's like, we've got some sad news for you. We lost somebody else.
All these greats are going, and that's a part of showbiz as well. Like, you get these amazing people who come, they bless us with their art, and when they pass away, it's only the art that remains and the memories. But it is heartbreaking for the family and the friends who have, of course, in this situation, asked for privacy.
do you know what? I often wonder with that, because we talk about people like Paul Cattermole because he's in the public domain and got a lot of fans, and we all know the music and all the rest of it. But it must be very, very difficult for those who actually knew him as Paul, because it's an entirely different situation.
I know,
for them,
because sometimes people are always like, why are you mourning a celebrity? But obviously we've seen the public persona, but as anyone who's in the public eye, you've got a personal life, you've got a private life, you've got people who see you beyond the lights and the glamour and see who you really are. So in these when these stories break in showbiz, you have everyone trying to do interviews and come on air, but, you know, there's a family and friends who've known him for over 25 years who are going to mourning, who are going to go through this journey of grief.
Does he have any brothers and sisters?
Yes, he has a sister who came out yesterday with a statement as well, again, talking about the family, how devastated they are. So,
God love them all.
Thoughts with everyone, that obviously the fans, but The family.
Family,
you know,
whereas it's more real for them.
The family and the S Club family.
I
obviously knew very
know.
well.
You know, they always say there's no party like an S Club party. And we just hope that, you know, once things have settled down, they'll be able to celebrate him and his life.
Yeah.
It just make you think, though, because not that I'm saying when my day comes that, you know, there will be a clamour of media people wanting to pay tribute on Twitter. There may be nobody at all.
Yeah.
But you do wonder who. I wonder who would tweet.
I know.
I bet there'll be people.
Oh, no,
I sort of bet there would be people who I actually really dislike.
Oh,
who would go, oh, yeah, he was my old...
He was such a
friend.
lovely person.
It's just like, you
No, you
hated
weren't.
me in
You didn't
real
call
life.
me for like 5 years.
Well, isn't that thing about Showbiz World in particular?
Yeah,
Like, oh, darling, you're
everyone
wonderful,
comes
you're
out.
lovely.
You know, we have a few Showbiz funerals coming up and we're going to be seeing all of the people coming out and it's just like, were you really his friend or her friend?
Yeah, you do wonder, don't you?
Yeah.
Tetchy, I tell you what.
Oh, I like that. Call me Tetchy.
Tetchy. Here's one for you, because we're going to be talking in a couple of minutes about this amazing hero dog.
I just
and
met
owner.
her.
Right, I'll tell you what, do you want, because we're moving over to the sofa for it, 'cause it's a big dog. Do you want to stay for that?
Yeah, why not?
Excellent. Right, so it'll be us three, plus a dog, and her owner in a couple of minutes. You don't want to miss it.
I joined GB News because I was sick and tired of not hearing my views being represented, not just mine, but so many people that I knew and spoke to.
I just couldn't get my voice out there. I couldn't say anything. I couldn't do anything. Whatever the narrative was, I kind of had to follow it.
GB News is there to provide a voice for those who have been ignored by the establishment media.
We think different things, we've got a different style.
GB News is here to be optimistic and positive about the future.
It's real kind of dynamic and flowing, with the audience very much at the heart of it, like a big family.
Here at GB News, we talk about the things that matter to you.
Hearing the voices from right across our towns and cities, especially our towns.
All sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion.
We're on a mission here to make a difference. And the GB News family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prison? I don't believe in prison.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
And right across the United Kingdom.
You can find us on Sky Channel 512.
Virgin Media Channel 604.
Freesat Channel 216.
Freeview Channel 236.
And YouView Channel 236.
You can also take us with you on DAB Plus Radio.
With the GB News app and at the website gbnews.uk.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Start the day with GB News.
We catch up on all the big stories you didn't hear the night before.
And take a look at what the world's talking about this morning. That's right, Monday to Thursdays from 6 o'clock. It's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Straight after breakfast, join us, Bev Turner and Andrew Pearce. We're going to take you through till noon.
We'll be tackling the big topics of the day, including the things that the other channels just won't talk about. If it's happening here. Wake up to mornings on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
New to GB News is the Saturday 5.
Join us every Saturday from 8 p.m. as we debate the week's stories, controversies and issues.
With us 4, plus a special guest.
It's 5 times the opinion, 5 times the debate, and 5 times the fun. The Saturday 5. Saturday nights from 8. Only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
You could wink at the end. I can't
Britain's
wink.
listening.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
It's 9:24. This is Breakfast with Stephen and Dawn. Still to come for you this morning.
We'll be hearing from one of the community members who received their invite to the King's Coronation for their amazing efforts in the local community. That's at 9:30 this morning.
And at 9:45, we're talking to a future star of Formula One, whose big dreams could see her competing in one of the biggest motorsports in the world.
Wow, go girl. So get in touch in all the usual ways. Email gbviews@gbnews.uk or tweet us at gbnews. Now, I'm loving this bit. I'm loving this bit. Are you? Right.
This is the best bit.
Heroic dog saved her teenage owner from a fire when an undiagnosed condition caused her to fall asleep with the stove on.
Yeah, Mia is a one-year-old German Shepherd, and she saved animal management student Melody Chen by tugging at her jumper and rousing her from the flames. And that's why we're sat over here, actually, because Mia's quite a big girl.
Yeah, and I'm so thrilled in the studio with us today, and Mia is in the running for Assistance Dog of the Year in the Animal Star Awards. So Melody and Mia, you've gone all camera shy all of a sudden.
You're liven up.
Melody, welcome. Thank you for joining us this morning. So can you tell us a little bit about your story? What happened with you that night when Mia saved you?
So I have a condition which causes my blood sugars to go low. I had a low blood sugar and fell asleep from it after, supposedly going to make breakfast. So I fell asleep and Mia woke me up by barking and licking my face to try and wake me up.
See, what is interesting, because she is actually an assistance dog, so she's trained to spot a few things.
Absolutely. She's trained to manage the medical side, but obviously you can't train for the event of a fire, so...
No. What is it? Obviously, for what she did, she deserves an award, quite rightly so. But she is an incredible creature in and of herself, I think. And we've only known her for 3 minutes.
She's lovely. And how old is she now, Melody?
She's just turned 1 in February, so she's still a puppy, really.
So, yeah, she's only 7 years old. And how long have you had her?
I've had her since she was 8 weeks old, so since she was a little bundle of fluff.
Oh, wow. And how do you go about getting a lovely, dog that helps you in such a way?
So with the lists for charities, they are so long at the minute, so we've decided to own a train, which means that I trained her myself, with the help of a charity that also helps train assistance dogs. So she's medical alert and autism response. She's trained for the medical part by me, but she's learning the psychiatric tasks with a charity called RAD, which are based in Leicester.
I mean, it is incredible what we can get dogs to do.
It is,
isn't it?
yeah.
She can't take her eyes off you. It's like you two have this connection. Would you say dogs like her are very intuitive?
Absolutely, yes. I mean, even with anyone, she can figure out if something's wrong, just, but also the bond that we have, as you can see, she's eyes on me always.
You've got some treats in your...
Absolutely.
Maybe that's keeping the game away slightly there as well.
Yeah,
what silly are you?
Got to keep it good somehow.
It's quite interesting, though, because it's not just when there is obviously a medical connection with dogs and how they're trained, but the fact you've had her since she was tiny.
Yes.
I mean, she's just got to be your best friend.
She is, honestly. She goes everywhere with me. Even if she wasn't an assistance dog, honestly, she's just the best.
What do you reckon, Steph? Would you like a Mia in your life?
I would love a Mia in my life. I'm craving a Mia. And as well, because a lot of people talk about how dogs can provide emotional support.
Absolutely, yes.
I know some friends who've gone through hard challenges and they get emotional support dogs.
Definitely, yes. They definitely do help with both the emotional and the physical side of it.
Yeah. So in terms of... I mean, I don't know, it's difficult to say, but in terms of how you move, because you're still obviously very young.
Yes.
As you move forward through life, will you, and after Mia's Day, will you always want to have a dog and a support dog?
I believe so, yes. I mean, once you have one, you kind of can't not have one. I mean, she saves my life so many times on a daily basis. You know, alerting to my medical conditions, and she keeps me safe. She's the reason why I can come out and be here today.
What other occasions has she helped you out in particular?
So I have a heart condition as well, so it causes my heart rate to spike and it can cause me to faint. So Mia's job is to let me know before that happens so I can sit down or lie down safely.
How does she detect that?
Yeah. So she's scent trained using saliva. So we trained her from a pup just using games, hiding bits of treats around the house, and then changing it into scent and teaching her to alert to the different changes in scent.
Isn't it incredible what they can do?
It is.
How they actually detect this, and the fact you train to yourself is remarkable.
That's astonishing. You must be so proud of her.
Definitely.
Wow.
Honestly, she's come so far since she was a pup.
Yeah.
So you tell us.
I was just going to say, if you're listening on GB News Radio, I don't know how to describe this most beautiful German Shepherd. Is she German Shepherd?
She is.
But with a golden tint to her. You're going to have to get on YouTube, get on our YouTube channel, or get on the GB News app and get to the programme at 9:30, and you can see this beautiful girl, Mia.
Oh. You know what?
We're going to get everyone to have a look at you.
Yeah, so people on the radio as well. She's got the most lovely ears, pointy ears, like, you know, you're the really cute gremlin. I can't remember which one it's called, but she's got ears like that. So really have a look.
Eyes.
Yeah.
I was going to ask, how do you learn how to train them to provide this support? Is it training that you have to get yourself as well?
So I've trained or helped train other assistance dogs before, just teaching them little things to help with their disabilities. So, of course, there are training routes that you can go through, but anyone can train the dog.
I tell you what, we should also point out that we're having this is very special for us because we're all stroking and petting. with assistance dogs, you've got to really, if you're a member of the public, leave them alone.
We have a lot of instances where people whistle at her, try and distract her, petting her, and you know, as cute as she might be, she is working and it does distract her from doing her job.
So treat them like a guide dog.
Absolutely. Same, you know, you wouldn't go up and just start petting a guide dog. It's the same principle, really.
Yeah. So we're very lucky, Mia.
We are, Mia.
Play with you. So just briefly, the Animal Star Awards, when are they happening? So
she was nominated for that at the beginning. We went through like a semi-finals. Sort of thing. And then she's got the actual finals in Portsmouth in November.
Wow.
Oh, right. Okay. Well, you've got a while to wait.
Just a while to wait there.
Well, the best of luck with that.
Wishing you the best.
And do you know what? It's been really lovely to meet you, Melody.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me in. Thank you. Oh, can we have her in the studio?
I know, it's just so lovely.
Bring your pet to work day.
It would be a nice thing to do when we get Rex, who's a Rhodesian Ridgeback. I'm going to bring him in one day.
Yay!
That'd be lovely.
When he's big enough. It might be end of the year, something like that.
Can I bring my spider in occasionally?
No, your tarantula.
No.
Your
Do you actually have a tarantula, Dawn?
Yeah.
I actually don't have her anymore. She sadly went, but I mean, if I had her, I could bring her in.
Have you got one of the casts?
Yes, she used to do that regularly.
Yeah.
She used to eat her boyfriends, that's how we used to feed her.
I know a lot of women who do that.
Yeah, anyway. I feel sorry for your husband. Anyway, don't go anywhere. We've got lots more still to come, including tell you more about the 850 charity representatives who've had their invite to the Coronation. We'll speak to one of them in just a moment.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Jacob Rees-Mogg. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, Nana, stop arguing. I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment. I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different.
Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, the Member of Parliament for North East Somerset and a former government minister. For years, I've walked the corridors of power in both Westminster and the City of London. I campaigned in the largest democratic vote in our island story. I know this country has so much to be proud of. We need to have the arguments, the discussions on how we make it better. The wisdom of the nation is in its people. Vox Populi, Vox Dei. That's why I'm joining the People's Channel. Join me Monday to Thursday at 8 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News has its own late-night paper preview show, Headliners, where comedians take you through the next day's top news stories. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper, we've got it covered for you. Headliners, every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, on Sunday mornings from 9:30, taking the politicians to task and breaking out of SW1 to see how their decisions are affecting you across the UK. Bursting the Westminster bubble every Sunday morning, only on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain's watching.
You've probably seen politicians interviewed 1,000 times, but we do it differently. We find out who they really are, we don't shout, we chat, and hopefully we bring a bit of light, not just heat. Did you know Kate Moss?
Apparently.
Do you have a pair of jeans or a pair of jeans?
No, of course I don't. What would I do with them?
My friends are like, oh my God, what's she doing now?
Join me every Sunday at 6 for Gloria Meets, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It is 9:37. You're watching and listening to Breakfast with Stephen and Dawn.
Right, OK, more than 850 community and charity representatives from across the UK have received an invite to the upcoming King's Coronation.
Now, that's on May the 6th, of course. It's taking place in Westminster Abbey in central London. So, 450 British Empire Medal recipients have been invited in recognition of their contributions.
One of the lucky invitees, got a great name as well, is a lady called Dawn Wood, a Marine Constable in the Essex Police, is with us this morning to tell us more about what's coming up. How exciting. Dawn, thank you so much for joining us this morning. Great name, by the way, just got to say that. So you've got an invite. You're going to be one of the lucky ones that are going... that are going to the coronation. Can you tell us what's happened? How did you get to hear about this?
I actually got an email, which was really bizarre because you don't expect to be invited to the King's Coronation via email. So when I initially opened it, I thought, who on earth is playing a joke on me? There's going to be, I'm going to find out that I'm going to turn up to the palace and I wasn't really supposed to be there. But yeah, I've made a few phone calls since and yeah, so excited. Absolutely. I just can't believe that I've been selected. What an honour.
I mean, there's not much in life that you can really describe as once in a lifetime, but this really is, isn't it? I mean, heck, well, what do you? I mean, it's going to be unbelievable, isn't it?
Yeah, and we've not had that much information at the moment. So all I know is I need to be there around about 7 a.m. So I booked a hotel nearby for the night before because I was really worried about the amount of people that are going to be in London. Would I end up being late? You can't run in the Westminster Abbey halfway through the ceremony. And I don't even know what I'm going to wear yet. I need to get myself a dress.
Yeah, I mean, outfit is going to matter because, quite literally, the eyes of the world will be upon you.
Yeah, definitely. I'm not sure if I'm going to be wearing my medals or not yet. I have it here if you'd like to see it.
Yes, we will.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
That's it. Hold it in front of your face. If you pull it in front of you, I know it's very uncomfortable, but there you go. Oh, that's marvellous.
Wow.
Well, of course, you must wear it, Dawn. You absolutely must wear it. What did you get it for?
So I got it for services to maritime policing and also the environment as well. So in 2019, I rowed solo across the Atlantic Ocean, unsupported, from Gran Canaria to Barbados. So I was on my own for 51 days in a tiny little rowing boat and raised awareness about plastic pollution. And when I got back, I did talks in schools about pollution and inspiring others to achieve their own goals. So I've rowed the Atlantic twice again since that. And in June this year, so literally a few weeks, with two other girls, so myself, Kay and Sophie, we're going to be rowing across the Pacific Ocean from San Francisco to Hawaii. And we're doing that for a charity. Big shout out to Big Purple Pants. They are a charity that are supporting women who have been diagnosed with secondary breast cancer. So we're really excited to be supporting them.
Oh, my God, that sounds amazing, Dawn. How long is that going to take?
We're thinking around about 40 days. So when I did the Atlantic, I was only the seventh woman on the planet that have ever done that crossing. For this one, we are going to be the third female trio to have ever done that crossing. We're not really that old, but collectively we're going to be the oldest female trio to have ever done that crossing. And you never know, there may be a world record in there as well. So we're going to fly out on the 1st of June to San Francisco. The race actually starts from Monterey, so there's other boats in this race.
Wow.
Wow.
Well, Dawn, you are not only a very clearly worthy recipient of a British Empire Medal, but a very worthy recipient of an invitation to the Coronation. Talk about a lifetime of memories it'll give you. Congratulations. I hope you have a wonderful time. I'm extremely jealous.
Yeah, absolutely. Both of those things happening within a month of each other. Oh, my God.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Brilliant. What a lovely lady, too. Just a great ordinary job she does.
All people called Dawn are lovely.
No comment. Let's time for the sport this morning. Scudder is here.
Yeah,
you know, I love
that's one
you,
thing,
really.
I cannot believe that people do that, row across the ocean on their own. I mean,
it must be
what
terrifying.
happens 10 days in? You haven't got sea legs. I mean, the terror.
Oh, yeah.
It's extraordinary.
You know,
I can't imagine.
The physical strength, but the mental strength. All that time on your own.
And what happens when you have a massive storm, a massive storm, waves the size of a house? I can't imagine any worse nightmare.
It would terrify me.
Talking of which, big storms in the US for Augusta National, Georgia. The Masters
had trees down, haven't they?
Extraordinary stuff last night. I wouldn't say it's quite a crisis, but the US Masters has been going for nearly 90 years. Only 5 times ever it's gone to the Monday where it's had to be extended because the weather's been so bad. But last night, it was very warm, about 80 degrees, and a storm came. And it was so bad, thunder and lightning, they had to suspend play. There's the trees, look. 3 of them came down, whether they were struck by lightning or just the high winds, but they came crashing down. Fortunately, nobody was hurt, but...
Nobody. I mean, they were falling near the patrons.
Yeah, I saw one picture. I mean, it came down. It looked like in a crowd, but the emergency worker said nobody was hurt. A miracle, really. As for the sport, it's disrupted things a lot because they've got to now complete the second round, which should have been done last night, today. That's affected a lot of the players because And the forecast is terrible for the rest of the tournament as well. So all the players that have completed their rounds, their second round, and have done well are sitting pretty, and they've got to watch the rest of them in pouring rain, probably, and strong winds.
How long has the tournament got to go?
Well, it's the... where are we now? So it starts, it's the third round, it should be the third round today, and then the final round on Sunday.
Right.
So some players have not finished their second round.
As I say, so it's quite a tight schedule now.
Yeah, it is. Rory McIlroy, good old Rory. It's been a long time since he won a major, but he had a nightmare yesterday. Not because of the weather. It's just that expectation. You know, we talked about football earlier and Frank Lampard and all the rest of it. Rory, he's number 2 in the world at the moment. He's been playing really well, but when it comes to the Masters, it's the only major he's not won. He just seems to have a bit of a mental block. Yes, he was terrible. He had a round of 77, which...
5 over.
Even better than that, Stephen. No, it's 5 over. Yeah, good stuff. Yeah. So he's not going to make the cut. He's not going to fit there for the rest of the tournament, which is a real shame for him because he's won all the other majors, but not the Masters. The other thing interesting about the golf is that you've got this breakaway group at the moment. So, when I say Live Golf, do you know what that is?
Oh, yeah.
So it's a kind of rival tour to the existing...
Very controversial.
Very controversial. You know what Live stands for, by the way?
No.
L-I-V, it's Roman numerals, 54, because they play 54 holes, not 72, which is... So it's a completely different format of the game. But one of the guys who's one of the rebels, and they've allowed them to play in the Masters, he's actually leading, a guy called Brooks Koepka. He's leading by 3 shots at the moment. He's finished his second round, so he can probably sit there and watch all the others be washed away by the rain and the wind. Another great story is an amateur who's in 3rd place at the moment.
Really?
Second place. No, he's in 3rd place. A guy called Sam Bennett. Amateur's never won the Masters, but he's on 8 under par. He's only 4 shots off the lead. Great story as well. He's 23 years old. And his dad died fairly recently, and he tattooed his last words onto his arm. Yeah. And the words were, "Don't wait to do something." And he sort of sits there looking. He's sensational.
Good. Yeah.
And he's got a chance, over the next couple of days. So, Sam Bennett, watch out for the American lad,
Yeah, good on you. What about the football?
Footy, yeah.
Because we've got Notts County and Wrexham,
about the Premier League and stuff, but the top of the non-league level, the National League, you've got, you'll know this story, Wrexham with their Hollywood owners, Ryan Reynolds, Rob McElhenney. They were knocked off the top yesterday by the only team that can stop them getting promoted. That's Notts County, who just
I love a bit of Notts County.
Notts County are one of the oldest clubs in England. I think after Sheffield FC, who are not a league club, Notts County have been around since the 1860s. And both clubs have got past 100 points. And guess what? On Easter Monday, they are playing each other in Wales. So that'll be a tremendous game. And whoever wins that will quite possibly win. Because only one team goes up to the Football League automatically. The rest have to go into a playoff and all the rest of the stuff that comes with that. So, I don't know what people think really about the Wrexham thing. I think the traditionalists say, you bought your way into this position. We don't like that. A bit like Chelsea we were talking about earlier.
Football is so full of money now, and so many clubs buy their way into it.
But Notts County, Notts County are the bedrock of English football tradition. They are, and they have done it a different way. But they've been in the Football League. There's so many big clubs now who've dropped out of the Football League, and so you've got that big game coming up on Monday.
That will be.
But Wrexham are going to, over the longer term, they'll
do all right.
They've got that money in the backing.
They'll do all right. I tell you what, always, because I used to work the Nottingham patch in my Trent FM days. If you're a viewer or listener in Nottingham, back in the Trent FM days when it was all good up there.
Tony Delahunty. Do you remember Tony? There's a name from the past. Yeah.
John Peters.
Tony Delahunty was. Do you remember the Bradford fire? He was doing a live broadcast on television when the stadium burned, and he was. Famous line, put that man out, extraordinary stuff.
Yeah. But there was always a huge irritation if people ever said Nottingham County instead of Notts County, or if they said Notts Forest.
That's right. It's very common. It's still said today.
Is it Notts
County and Nottingham Forest. But people still say Notts Forest. And as Brian Clough would have said, young man, wash your mouth out.
Yeah.
Nottingham Forest, not Notts Forest.
Yeah.
But I hope that Notts County go up automatically. How about that?
No, I do actually. But then
But Wrexham will get there.
We'll get there eventually. Scott, anything else you want to throw in?
What do you want to talk about? We got Frank Lampard's return.
Oh, go on. Yeah. That's going to be interesting.
Go to Wolves today in the Premier League.
Oh, London derby, West Ham, Fulham.
Yeah, I mean, West Ham they're in the mix. It's so close at the bottom of the Premier League. There's only 3 points between, I think, 12th and 18th. So one win and you go leaping out of trouble. A massive game today. I think it's Leicester-Bournemouth, who are both in the bottom three. Leicester won the league 2016.
Yes.
That fairy tale could come crashing down in the next few weeks if they drop out of the top division. You know, they sacked their manager, Brendan Rodgers. They're playing Bournemouth, who have got, nothing to lose, really. I mean, they're expected to go down, probably. But, that's a
lot of competition for that relegation.
Yeah, it's good. I mean, it's almost more exciting as it is at the top,
As a West Ham fan, it's not that exciting.
West Ham won't go down. Don't worry about it.
I was thinking of Leicester being a bit like Reginald Perrin, the rise and fall.
A rise and fall,
It's just I think it's a real shame. Yeah. But anyway, Scott, we'll see you tomorrow, won't we?
Yeah.
Look forward to that. Thank you very much indeed. Now, have you ever dreamed of becoming a racing driver, Scott?
NHS strikes from Tuesday, 4-day strike.
There you go. Well, lots
End of that conversation.
Lots of people have the roar of the engine, the smell of burnt rubber and exhaust fumes. I do like a bit of F1.
I was wondering where we were going with that one. Right, well, there's one girl looking to make that dream a reality. A 17-year-old, Chloe Grant, who wasn't even allowed to drive down her own street until recently, has been chosen to join the elite Formula One Academy.
Yeah, so her future is bright and potentially oily, and she joins us now from Barcelona, of all places. Look, it's really good to see you this morning. I mean, you must be absolutely thrilled at where things are going for you.
Yeah, I am. Having the chance to be a part of F1 Academy is a dream come true for me. I mean, even racing in single-seaters, I never thought that I would ever be doing that. So, yeah, I'm really, really grateful to F1 for making this dream come true for me and for all the girls on the grid. And, of course, I'm so grateful to ART Grand Prix for letting me race with them. It's such an incredible team that will make me be the best driver I can possibly be.
Chloe, you're 17 years old, absolutely amazing. Girls doing well in anything always impresses the hell out of me. But you've only just passed your driving test. I mean, so you couldn't drive down the road, but you can bomb around an F1 track.
Yes, I only passed I only got my licence last week. I was actually very lucky with how getting my licence all worked out. I managed to do my theory and practical within 1 week, so I think I only had about 4 lessons in total, and then I managed to pass the test, luckily, so I'm on the roads now as well.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be slightly worried, Chloe, if you didn't pass first time, but there you go, it'd be a bit of a worry. I tell you what always strikes me with this sort of thing, especially with young drivers, how do you manage, because you're used to putting your foot down, how do you manage to temper your driving when it comes to real life?
Well, it's a different mindset for me, as a driver you're able to adapt, so it's just adapting to a different scenario, really. I don't have my helmet on, I've not got the safety measures I would if I was in my race car, and I go fast on the track. There's no reason for me to have to go fast on the roads, and I don't really feel the need, so...
Which car are you in there, Chloe? We're looking at... Can you see that screen and see what...
Yeah, so
that's
footage from last year when I competed in GB4.
Yeah, so obviously you're going from that to more powerful cars now. I tell you what people don't always appreciate. I remember seeing Lewis Hamilton talking about it. It's just how fit, the physical side of F1 driving. It's not just about driving, is it? You've got to be properly fit to do it.
Yeah, it's non-stop training. It is really difficult, but I mean, for me, when I drive the car, obviously, I don't feel like I have any aching parts or like I'm out of breath, because the fact you always are training for the next level. So since F1 Academy is an F4 car, since I'm training for the level above, I'm training as if I'm about to jump in an F3 car, which obviously I'm not going to currently. But that's how you train to make sure that you're physically able to get the car around, for the period of time you have to, constantly performing to your peak level, and, getting good results.
And Chloe, like Lewis Hamilton we just mentioned, you were actually spotted whilst karting.
Not for this, obviously, as this is only just recent. And I think everybody only kind of heard about F1 Academy last year. I heard about it in November last year. So yeah, I did karting for 7 years, and I got quite a few contacts. So SMRC and Knockhill Racing Circuit, they kind of spotted me from a young age, and they've really helped me in my career to support me. So they helped me get my car racing license, because your karting and car racing is separate. And so they helped me with that, and they've been really good with letting me, drive different cars around their circuits and just giving me experiences and contacts and meeting new people. So yeah, they've been really, really good for that. And then it's just kind of all worked out and progressed every year.
Well, look, you've got a bright future, Chloe. We're going to watch you very closely. Chloe Grant is a name we shall keep an eye out for. Really good to see you this morning. Thank you very much indeed. That's it from us. Esther and Phil are up next. First, though, let's have a look at your weather.
Hello, good morning. The fine weather is going to continue for many as we go through today, with some dry, sunny and warm weather for most of us, but things will turn more unsettled as we head towards the end of the long weekend. The reason for the settled conditions is this area of high pressure dominating the picture across the UK currently, but weather fronts waiting out in the Atlantic will reach us as we go through Sunday and later into Monday. Taking a look at the picture first thing, and there is some mist and fog across southern parts to watch out for this morning. Also some cloud and outbreaks of rain across eastern North